Do you think there's like little green men out there?
No little green men, sir.
No? Well, what do you think there is out there?
Who knows, dude? They could be made of water. I don't even know.
Water?
Water, man. You heard the man. Water. They could be made of anything. Extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial, you mean?
Extraterrestrial.
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 There you go.
You're listening to the Mystic Menagerie podcast, your regular descent into the world of alternative entertainment, art, and culture. Bolt the door, light the fire, and pour yourself a glass of Virgin Rouge, and let your hosts, Dan Baines and Lord Freddie Valentine, guide you through the Stygian depths of your darkest delights. Warning. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Mystic Menagerie podcast. I'm your host Dan Baines along with my co-host Freddie Valentine. Hi Freddie.
Hello. Good afternoon, evening, whatever time it is you're listening. You know.
That's it. We're global, so it could be any time.
Yeah, universal, I'd say.
We've also got a special guest. We've got Terry the Budgie with us this afternoon.
He's chirping away, singing all in his own little inimitable way. He's probably singing ZZ Top. That's what he likes, that kind of music.
Yeah, I think if you go on your Facebook page, there's a little picture of him there, isn't there? Yeah,
he's got his own Facebook page. If you type in Terry the Budgie, he's got his own Facebook page where he's got pictures of himself posing and his favourite music, which is generally sort of, he likes hard rock sort of stuff, okay. ZZ Top, Queen, that kind of thing.
Great. If that isn't bizarre, I don't know what is.
He is quite bizarre, yeah.
And first of all, we'd like to thank everyone who has backed us on Patreon, who without this show, the show wouldn't exist really. Obviously, we do everything for free, and Patreon enables people to go online and back the show. So it's been really successful. We launched Patreon last month, and we've already got 14 patrons at the moment, which is a nice start. But it's it's generated a little bit of income for me and Freddie to put back into the show. So everything that you do pledge goes straight back into maintaining the Mystic Menagerie site, and obviously all of the hosting for all of the shows. But we'd like to give a shout out to our 14 backers. So with many thanks to Libby, Adrian Lawrence, Alan Penman, Paul Knopfsinger, Dan, E.R. Perkins, Sean Steele, Marcus Field, Tony Miller, Matthew Gostelow, Mike, Tracy Modi, Laura Steele, and Dan Dent. So, which is amazing, great. We're straight into, 14 backers, and we're really pleased.
Yeah, massive thanks to all of them, because it really means a lot to us that people are backing the show, you know what I mean? Because, like I say, we want people to enjoy it, we want it to be a good show, and the fact that people out there are backing the show and they're behind what we're doing, we really appreciate that. It does mean a lot to us. Yeah. So, on behalf of both of us, we're very pleased that people are enjoying the show and backing it. So if anybody else listens to the show and wants to back us, please do so, because it helps us continue, not function every day, you know what I mean?
We can food and clothe ourselves.
Food with it, but it helps the show continue. Do you know what I mean? It helps us to continue, and also we have a little extra for those that do back us. So, big thanks to all those people that Dan just mentioned. We really appreciate that. So, if you want to become a backer of the Mystic Menagerie, if you want to join the gang, get on board, then please do so.
Just head over to patreon.com and type in the Mystic Menagerie. If you go to our Facebook page, and also on YouTube, you'll see a link to Patreon, and just you can pledge anything from $1 to $5. Those who are now who've backed us at the $15 level are part of the Mystic Menagerie Inner Sanctum, and you are able to listen to our special invite-only shows. This is our first one this month. The one we've got this month for you is, we thought we'd not start off nice and basic. So this one is So You Want to Be a Mystery Entertainer, where me and Freddie are going to discuss some little tips and secrets that will enable you to have a successful track on the way to becoming, or maybe not, a mystery entertainer. But we're not going to disclose too much about that here, because obviously that is for our Patreon backers only. So they will receive an invite or a download link to that special show. It would be about half hour, 40 minutes. And that is exclusively for your ears only.
And the thing that's exclusive about this is these aren't shows that are going to be archived and stored, so if someone becomes a backer like in 6 months' time, they won't be able to access all the previous ones. It's for people that are backing it now. Do you know what I mean? They'll get the new ones as it comes in. So those are the first backers will get these shows, specifically.
That's it. So you might be able to get in. If you get in now, you'll also have access to that extra show, and it's full of valuable information that even if you're not a mystery entertainer, or, you're just thinking of doing something like maybe a ghost walk or anything entertainment based, which is to do with the occult, I think you're going to find some really handy hints and tips, primarily because Freddie is a full-time mystery entertainer, and I'm a full-time prop designer. I design illusions for the bizarre magic market. And also, there's a lot of things out there that it's a bit of a minefield, and if you don't do it right, you're going to look foolish. I think that's the word. Thanks for helping me out there.
A nincompoop, I think
that's it. I'm not feeling too good at the moment. I've got like a bit of a weird head cold, so if I seem a bit kind of flaky, that's why.
Do you know what? I had that yesterday. I woke up with a really bad sore throat, like someone has it's like someone has taken a bit of glass out the window and stuck it in my throat.
That's it. I've got that. Yeah,
it's the same. And my head felt so muzzy yesterday, and I slept for about 2 hours. And it's one of these, where you swear and you have weird dreams and stuff like that. It'd be like a Razorhead dreams and that kind of thing. And I still got it my head feels a bit strange today. That's just whether it's hay fever or pollen or whatever it is. But there's something strange in the air, I think.
It's the shit weather. That's what it is. 1 minute it looks like it's getting really hot, and then it just goes freezing cold again. So you've got you put the heating on, you turn it off. You put the heating on, you turn it off. So your body's constantly fluctuating, and that constant fluctuation, I think, just screws your immune system up, and then these little things creep in.
It does, and it reminds me of an episode, as you say, about the weather changing like that. I don't know if you've heard of a 60s TV show called Lancelot Link.
The monkey.
It's a chimpanzee detective program. Yeah. And there's one where this evil chimp had got this weather machine, and they kept changing the weather. So it's snowing 1 minute, then sunny outside. And the female chimp, Matahari, she was called. She kept saying to Lancelot, look out the window, let's go out, it's sunny outside. And as they get there to go out, it starts snowing. Oh no, it's snowing outside. And it went on for about 10 minutes. It's sunny outside. And that always sticks in my mind. So every time it is sunny outside, I always say to the missus, it's sunny outside, in the same chimp voice.
Well, maybe it could be that. It could be a chimpanzee controlling the weather.
I hope it. I really hope it is.
Well, there's some control in the country, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's some control in the weather as well. So,
well, there could be some chimp supervillains, because I saw on the news there's equal rights for chimps now. These 2 chimps have been given the rights of a human on the news.
Really?
Yeah, they were kept in a zoo. I think it's in New York somewhere. They were caged up, and they've gone to court. These animal rights activists saying that because they have emotions and feelings, they shouldn't be caged up. They should have their own rights to be free.
Surely that's the same for any animal, though.
It is, but I think because chimps are close to humans, they're the ones who are getting like the first dibs on the
first dibs,
taking over the earth kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, good luck to them, I'll say.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that one. And what we're going to do now, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with Our Bizarre Life.
A young girl is murdered at a famous English boarding school near London. The newspapers call the mad killer the Sinister Monk.
Help! Help! The monk was here! I'm scared. I'm so scared. Help!
Who is he? Who is the Sinister Monk?
Hello and welcome back. This is Our Bizarre Life, where myself and Dan talk about weird things that have happened in our lives or generally around us, And there's been a lot of strange things happening, really. And we're going to give you an update on the Cornish Pixie or the Cornish Piskie, which you might have heard on the last show, and you might have seen the photographs of, about the gentleman that contacts us about this very tiny skeleton that he found inside a bird's nest. We've not heard much from him since this, have we? He's been a bit backed off a little bit.
He did. He dropped off the radar. I think what happened was it was quite popular on the show. The link was distributed round, and someone actually showed him a copy, or I think it was on the Facebook page. They showed him a picture of this fairy skeleton or the pixie skeleton, And it freaked him a bit because it had kind of gone full circle and come back to him. And as a result, he's gone off the radar completely. He was a bit apprehensive about the whole thing anyway. And I think that the power of social media has put him off. So
I think one of the things is one of it was either the Cornish Tourist Board or Cornish newspaper retweeted it, and kind of it got a bigger audience there. So people started sort of questioning about it. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose there were some people questioning around the bird sanctuaries. I assume that's what's happened there because like the Cornish media started to become interested in it at the time. There's a few people retweeting it, so maybe I know he's in the backs off completely because of it becoming a bit more widespread.
Yeah, our emails go unanswered, I'm afraid, at the moment. But what we'll do is, we'll leave it open. If anything comes back about it and he mans up a bit and comes back, we'll let you know, and we'll post more things on the Facebook page. But as for now, it just remains a mystery. He kind of came forward with it and then has gone again.
As we know, you listen to the show, like you say, if it's just, the story does become bigger or anything like that, me and Dan will speak on your behalf if you don't want to face the media or any hassle like this. Obviously, it's your job, but if you are listening, me and Dan will cover all that and make sure that your secrecy is maintained. So, if you want to come forward, answer our emails, please, because we want to know more. Yeah,
definitely. So, as I say, as soon as we hear anything more about that, we will get back to you. Another few developments, as you remember from last month's show, we did an interview with David and about his film Bad Acid that was on Indiegogo, and it was great. The project actually fully funded, and the film is going ahead.
That's great news, isn't it? I mean, David's a really nice guy. The interview with him was brilliant.
It was.
He's someone worth getting on the show again because, like I say, it's a very good. The film to me sounds brilliant. Anyway, it's something I definitely would see. If I was going to cinema and I saw a description of a film like that, I'd go and see that. So it's great that something that's quite out there, idea-wise, quite surreal, is getting made. So congratulations to David for that as well. And as you know, Mystic Menagerie here, we're behind the film 100%. Yeah. And Bad Acid is something which we'll be following with interest as it progresses.
Definitely. I think once it comes out and the film's made, I think we'll get David back on the show so he can fill us in on the details of the full production and the reception and everything. And it's great. I know me and Freddie were kind of semi-involved in sorting props and stuff out, and I know he's found a really good location now for the filming of the antique shop type scene. So that's great news, and we look forward to seeing more.
Yeah, it's a great location as well. So I think when people see the film, it is something that's quite well known. I'd say, but it's a great location. It should add a lot of atmosphere to the film.
That's it. Another crowdfunding success story there. So that's great.
Yeah, excellent. And congrats to David for that. So yeah, something to look forward to.
That's it. Well, so what have you been up to, Freddie? Have you been doing anything particularly odd?
I've been busy. I've been doing lots of psychic fairs, paranormal events, that sort of stuff. The general odd stuff that I do. Just getting that sort of stuff together. So it's been quite hectic for me in that way. So, but generally, I've been sort of working on things like that really, so I've been kept busy with that side of things. I had a very strange request. I can't say too much about it, but there's like an online TV station that's coming soon.
Okay.
And I've been approached to be the sort of face of it and do the idents and the links.
All right. Okay.
It's going to be like videos of like showbizy type stuff, and they want me to sort of be a presenter. So, I don't know. I'll give it a go. You know what I mean? I think I'll probably do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Turn down some of my humour for it, depending on the age group of the audience, You
can't really say no to stuff like that. Well, I suppose you can do, depending on what channel it is. But it sounds, obviously being a presenter of like cabaret acts and stuff, it just sounds like the same as probably what you do at one of your cabaret evenings on telly.
Definitely, yeah. And the thing is, doing my own cabaret shows, I put on acts that I like. So when I say, "Oh, this is a really good act coming up," I mean it, Whereas I couldn't sort of say, "Oh, here's Robbie Williams' record. New record, it's brilliant," I'd feel such a fake doing that, But as long as I don't have to express an opinion on things that I may not like, that's okay. I don't mind doing that.
That's great. So you've mainly been doing your seances and your cabaret evenings and stuff, and
that sort of thing, yeah. And I organised a few events like psychic fairs and stuff like this. I've been doing, So it's been quite busy in readings and stuff like that. So
Great.
Generally quite hectic. Yeah, I'm working on a book. I write a book that's quite different to what I've normally written about. It's a book I'm working on, which I may publish at some point, about the weirdest albums ever made musically.
Okay.
But ones that you put on and there's no link. You know when you listen to most albums that you can hear like drums or a bass or a rhythm or a melody there. But ones that you put on and you think, where the hell does this come from? Like it's been from outer space. I suppose the most challenging sort of music that you could come across. So I've been working on a book about that kind of stuff. So
obscure albums.
The ones that musically are obscure, you should put it on and you know where the influences come from, and some of them you don't even know what instruments are being played because it's so strange sounding. You've got things in there like Wild Man Fisher, which is quite hard to get into, Troutmarsh Replica by Captain Beefheart, and like Scott Walker's recent stuff, that kind of thing, stuff that's really so out there that it doesn't sound like any other music you've heard before. So I'm writing a book about that, so hopefully get that out there at some point, maybe on Amazon or something.
Good. That sounds all very interesting.
It's all been fun. Yeah, what you been up to? Are you been busy with new stuff?
I'm gearing up for Doomsday. Yeah, it's Doomsday next month. It's come around so quickly, I can't believe it. It's 3 weeks away. Is it 3 weeks? Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. And it's hectic, but we've managed to fill all the time slots. All of the acts have got their times.
Brilliant.
Everything's all confirmed. Everything's all done. All I've got to do is turn up, dish a few badges and bits and bobs out, and hopefully it should all slot together nicely. The infrastructure's already there. We've been going there for 5 years previously, so it's not like we're doing anything new. Everyone's like one big happy family. So I suppose it's just organising everybody. I might do a few little extra touches. I was thinking of having like a nice big projector screen up and having really bizarre things projected on this screen with a bit of music going, just as people sort of get seated and mooch about, just give it a bit of atmosphere.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Because it is a Christian retreat and there's lots of nuns knocking about, you have to kind of be I don't know, I'm always a bit sensitive of, I don't want to offend anyone, so I was thinking of putting like a nice curtain over the door so no nosy nuns can have a look. And
no nuns allowed.
Yeah, I mean, the venue itself, obviously it's a castle, so you can't get any better than having a castle in Whitby on top of a hill. It's just obviously the fact that when you go there, it's a weekend, and there's usually like another Christian retreat sort of group there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. So when you go to the bar at night, you've got your kind of, your bizarre magic contingent, sort of, black T-shirts, the odd 5-pointed star knocking about them. Ian J whipping himself and walking over broken glass in the bar, that type of stuff. And then in the other corner, you've got a bunch of, I'm trying not to be too offensive, but they're kind of, straight down the line.
Happy clappers. Yeah,
happy clappers. Nice sort of assortment of jumpers, assorted knitwear. I mean, they're quite friendly. They don't come over, but if you, I think Paul Vudini, who was on our show, a few shows back, episode 3, I think, he went and offered to do a tarot reading for one of them, and he got shunned.
Well, it's funny you should say that because the Christians, they can be quite cultish in some ways, because there's a festival in London called the Mind, Body and Spirit Festival, and I don't know if you've heard of that before.
I have, I've heard of it.
Been going for years. Well, usually it used to, when I used to go in the sort of 80s, I suppose, early 80s. It was very sort of like pagan, there was like tarot card readers there, there's people selling Ouija boards, and there's witchcraft stores where you can buy potions and stuff like that. And they tend to have died down a bit, and it's more alternative medicine type stuff, or massage and that kind of thing. But the Christians are getting in on it now. So they give this, there's a stall there, it's like a big sort of marquee with people sitting at tables, look like they're giving tarot readings, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're free actually. They may be, but when you go over there, you think you're getting a tarot reading, but they're actually Jesus cards. So they've invented their own tarot deck, which is like a Christian tarot deck. So what they do is they give you a reading with these cards. At the end, they say, actually, this is in the Bible. Pull out a Bible and start reading you from the Bible.
Oh, right, okay.
About Jesus. So it's their own. They're thinking, hang on a minute, people are into this tarot business. You know what I mean? So if we can suck people in our way by making our own Jesus cards, and they've also got people that are doing like faith healing there. Like Reiki healing, but it's like as Jesus did, 2,000 years ago. So they're trying to get in on that. So they do have a little bit of a tendency to go towards that, but it's more in a case of to lure the people to their side, I think, to get the new age people to follow them.
It's like converting all of the pagan festivals into Christian festivals, kind of latching onto it. whole Easter and Christmas and Halloween and all that, and kind of just giving it a bit of a Christian edge and sticking their mark on it. But
it's quite weird they've latched on tarot cards though, because it's going to be like tool of the devil. Whether it's their own Jesus cards, but it's the same principle,
Yeah, but it's got Jesus on it, so it makes it different.
But every reading they were saying was the same, because I was listening to a few of them. I was standing by the stall just listening, because I went there and I bought a few nice pendulums about, like, for the stalls and stuff like that. And I know you should go and have some grub for the Hare Krishnas, because I like the Hare Krishnas. And I was listening to these Jesus people, and it's all the same reading, and they're all quoting the same bits from the Bible.
Yeah.
As they're saying, your life is, you can be really good if you follow this in the Bible. And they pulled the Bible. So basically, they were just pushing Bibles upon people, really. So it's almost like a Trojan horse.
It is. Yeah,
it's very strange.
With a real big disappointment inside.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, no offence to our Christian listeners, but, any form of mainstream religion is a big disappointment to me. And
it is, yeah. Witchcraft is the only true faith. So if you're listening and you're not, into witchcraft and devil worship, we recommend, check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
It's fun.
Well, speaking of pendulums as well, I've released a new line of pendulums. They're aptly called Penny Dreadful pendulums, and they're pendulums from historic, I can't even say it, I've got to put my teeth back in, hold on, horrific historic events. So we've got, and they're coins from the exact year that event happened. So we've got coins from 1888, obviously the year of Jack the Ripper, and we've got a 1912 one, which is the sinking of the Titanic. And at the moment, we've got the death of Edgar Allan Poe, which is dated 1849. And these are genuine coins from that period. And we've got a few more coming up as well. Got some Salem, New England, I think New England shillings made out of real silver, actual proper reproductions.
Wow.
From 1692. So they're quite pricey though, because they're solid silver. But they should be in stock soon, and they look like the real deal. So anyone doing a kind of witchcraft type of presentation who wants to use a real, what essentially looks like a genuine coin from 1692 can use one of these as the pendulum. So
fantastic. And
all of that kind of links to your pendulum book that you wrote on the actual website page as well. So if you go over to Lebanon Circle and just type in pendulums, there's all sorts of, there's quite a few pendulums on the site, not just from Lebanon Circle, but from Divination Magic and other retailers. So there's... and also the penny pendulum sets we bought out a few years ago, the Victorian one with a little box. That was a nice set, isn't it? Still very popular, still it's a bit of confusion when that first came out, because everyone was saying, where's the routines? And there isn't any routines. It's a pendulum. It's used for pendulum divination, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not a magic trick. It's actual pendulum.
Yeah, there's no magnets and stuff involved. I mean, you can incorporate them into a routine if you're a magician. There's no problem with that. But yeah, if you buy it, don't expect lots of tricks to wow your friends with.
Or a card revelation at the end of it,
No, there's nothing like that. But they're really popular. I've also I'm really into my leather at the moment, Freddie.
Right,
big style,
just like the village people.
Yeah. I've actually got one of those hats as well. I think if people go on my Facebook page, they'll see me in one of those dodgy. We used to call them leather Joy Boy hats when I was a kid. I don't know what you called them, but
I don't know. I think the people at the time, because I think that it's associated with, when Freddie Mercury sang that crazy little thing called Love, he wore one.
Yeah,
and the people that wore them sort of hats were called. Apparently, they were called Castro clones. Is the name of it?
Oh, is it?
That's the actual technical name.
Yeah.
But usually you have to have a moustache to have the full look. You have to have a moustache.
Yeah, well, I've got that as well. I've got
the leather chaps as well.
Yeah. See, I don't think I mentioned this on them. I've got quite, from when I used to live in London. We've got quite a few gay friends, and I thought I'd put in my support for the gay community. So I went along with one of my mates he's not gay. He's not, we're both friends with these gay guys. So I thought we'd go along to Gay Pride. And I thought, well, I've got to look the part. I can't just go as I am. So I thought, I'll go stereotypical gay. So I got myself like a leather hat with a little chain on, with boy written on it in sort of shiny aluminium, a pair of aviator sunglasses, and a pair of cycling shorts, and I wore my old combat boots from the Navy. And I obviously had my handlebar. Well, I've got my goatee beard anyway, so I put that on. And I tell you what, no one went near me at all. Even my gay mate said I looked scary gay, the point that no one would go. The only people who came up to me and talked to me were a load of like bondage like a group of bondage type guys. They were German, I think, and they had a gimp on a chain, and they came up and shook my hand and said hello. So I fitted in that kind of genre. But I think in the general sort of gay community, I was a little bit too 1980s, sort of gizzard puke. Was it gizzard puke?
Gizzard puke, yeah. Or British people had a geese like that in there, didn't they? One of them had the hat and all that. The British people. Yeah.
And I actually wore it to Download as well. I went to the rock festival Download, and I thought, you know what, I've got it's kind of my drinking hat, and I felt comfortable wearing it. I thought, quite a few bands were playing. I thought, I look a bit like one of the rockers. It looks a bit like the Black Widows from the Any Which Way But Loose films. And I got avoided completely then as well. It's great. You wear one of those hats, you got the whole place to yourself, even at a rock festival.
The thing is both those hats, though, the hats and the tash and all that, and the aviator shades and the leather jacket and the string vest, that's kind of the archetypical image. If you saw something like that, you'd assume, that's a full-on, gay, wouldn't you? You'd think.
Yeah.
But in Eastern Europe, it's seen as like a manly image.
What, the leather hat?
I've got a friend who's Lithuanian, right? He's about 60, Lithuanian, and he likes rock music and stuff, but he's big into the village people. And people saying they wouldn't have it, that it's a gay group. He sort of, no, the way they dress is very macho, it's very manly, it's professionals like a policeman and a cyclist, you know what I mean, with a leather hat, it's like Hell's Angel.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have it, but their attitude towards gay people and that is very sort of backwards in some of these countries.
Well, it's like that neck of the woods, I think.
And I remember, he went to see We Will Rock You, the musical. When he came out, I don't know, there was some campaign or fundraising thing at the end, some charity thing. And he said to me, I enjoyed the show. He goes, but they were telling me at the end, Freddie Mercury was a homosexual. But he was so shocked by it. He was shocked by it. He couldn't believe that out of all people in the world, that Freddie Mercury would, do you know what I mean? He's the most obvious, do you know what I mean? He's the most blatant, and he was absolutely shocked, and he just couldn't believe he wouldn't have it.
We had a corner shop at the bottom of our road when I lived back up in Derby when I was at school, and there was a really sweet Asian guy owned the corner shop, and we're talking about I think it was Dame Edna, and he said, Daniel, I need to tell you a big secret. And I was like, what is it? He goes, Dame Edna is a man. And I was like, you're joking. He'd been watching it for years and years, thinking it was like some big sort of Australian bird, and he was shocked to discover it was actually a man in drag. So,
is it really?
Yeah, well, I just kind of went along with it and said, you're joking, aren't you? I said that. I don't know. The world today.
About Mrs. Brown. Don't tell about Mrs. Brown.
Yeah, the world today. Eh? So anyway, I've sort of deviated a little there on my leather tangent.
Yeah.
But I've started all the sort of things I've been making over the years, like From Hell, Spiritus Claritus cards, A Book at Midnight. I've actually sort of started accessorising with them, really.
Brilliant.
So now I'm making leather wallets and card holders for all of these cards, because I didn't make any sort of boxes for them originally. So I've been embossing leather and staining leather and printing. All the interior boxes are all 3D printed, so I can pretty much make a leather wallet or a wrap for any size deck of cards, tarot cards, you name it. And they're really popular. I've just got... The whole studio smells of leather, and my hands are just black from all of the dyes and stuff I've been using, and it's great. So, and the new leather part of the company is called Phobos, and anyone who is a bit geeky and played computer games, especially on the Amiga, will know there was a game called Leather Goddess of Phobos, which was a kind of, if you're a teenage boy, it had lots of dodgily rendered women with big breasts on this planet. They're a bit like Elvira, but they were aliens.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, if you Google it, go on Google Leather Goddess of Phobos, and you'll see what I mean. I mean, you look at it now and you think, how can anyone get excited about that at all. But
the nearest thing I can remember was on ZX Spectrum was Samantha Fox's strip poker game.
yeah, I remember.
Pixelated sort of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if you squinted,
yeah, it looked fairly real, but black and white.
Yeah, but monochrome. A purple Sam Fox, but you had to look at it from the other side of the room.
Yeah,
which isn't very handy when your box of tissues is right by the computer.
Exactly. So. You might as well bought the sun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's it, really. In that respect, I've just been in the studio all day, every day, knocking out leather things, making pendulums, updating the website, and getting Doomsday sorted, essentially. So
brilliant.
But yeah, it's bizarre and it's full time, so you can't go wrong with that.
Exactly, it's good. Keep them busy. That's the most important thing, isn't it? As you're doing something interesting,
Well, that's it.
Important thing.
Well, we have got a busy show today, and we have got a very special guest who's going to be with us straight after the break. Yeah. And his name is Thom Burgess, and he's got his fingers in a hell of a lot of pies.
Yeah,
a bit like us, really.
Exactly, and we're going to do a little review of Malevolents, which is the comic that he's got out, actually, before we speak to him, because we got a copy of that recently, didn't we, Dan? The Malevolents comic. We did,
and it's brilliant. I mean, we'll talk about it with him on the show, but and we'll give out the links and we'll put them on Facebook and everything. But he's actually written a full-length comic, and also it's loosely based on the topic that we're going to cover in the Paranormal Corner later on in the show.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So we'll have a chat about that. What we'll do is we'll take a short break now, and then we'll come back to you with our guest in the third chair, Thom Burgess.
Ghosts of the dead, ghosts of the living dead, walk these streets with silent tread.
Who's there? What do you want?
And welcome back to the Mystic Menagerie podcast. Right now we have a special guest on the show in the third chair, and the special guest is Thom Burgess. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Dan. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It's an honour.
No problem. And this is the great thing about podcasting, because even though the Mystic Menagerie had been chugging along nicely for, best part for half of a decade, had it not been for the podcast, I don't think our paths would have ever crossed.
No, I think the wonder of Twitter linked us up through, was it Laura?
Yeah, Laura Steele, our number one fan.
Yes,
that's it. Because she obviously I think she recommended that we sort of contact each other, and the rest is history.
Yeah, amazing to find out that you're also based in Kent as well, which you're not 100 miles away from me, which is really interesting.
Yeah, we stuck out on a limb in the probably the hardest part of the country to get to. If you dare brave the M25, which I think I bring that up every show about how crap it is, but yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, I think Freddie was going to point out, I think, because Freddie is the Twitter controller. Most of our followers are actually from the paranormal or independent horror movie background, aren't they, Freddie?
Yeah, a lot of people in film and TV and that kind of thing, and artists, really. We get a lot of people following us that are to do with like the art or unusual stuff. Do you know what I mean? Strange artists and stuff like that, which is kind of a good crowd to have. Do you know what I mean? Following the show, because that's the kind of stuff that we're into. So it's great to have people from all kinds of artistic genres coming together. Because we want to cover all kinds of different pieces of art on this show, or whatever form it comes. And one of the things obviously we want to cover is your fantastic comic that you brought out.
Oh, that's very kind of you. It's been a real kind of passion project, which it's been great to finally get out. Pleased to say it's doing the Comic Cons at the moment. But I'm really really pleased you liked it. It's good to finally get it out there.
Yeah, the artwork is amazing. I mean, as a fellow artist and stuff, I'd love to do a graphic novel, but I think it's just, you have to be cut out to do that type of work. As you say, it's a labour of love, isn't it, doing a graphic novel, without a doubt.
It is. I'm really, really pleased that the guy who did book one, Joe Becci, who's a fantastic illustrator from Kent, he's got a real kind of really sort of eerie, illustrative look to his work.
Yeah.
He's gone on to great things now, and he's doing several Kickstarter projects. I think he's always kind of flat out working, But it's great. He really lent a really kind of scary, unnerving feel to it, which I think has gone down fairly well.
How long did that take, the layout and the artwork for that comic in total? I should say graphic novel. So
no, it's by all means, it's a comic. It probably it took around about 3 months, I guess. From I started sketching really crude panels on an EasyJet flight to Madrid last year, and then just feeding it through to Joe, and just with the script, and then he come back with pages as we went along. So yeah, it was fairly straightforward once it was done and storyboarded. It was a relatively pain-free process.
Yeah, it's I say it's amazing, and it's really great if you send me and Freddie through a complimentary copy of it, and it sits pride of place on my shelf of many strange things. So
yeah, I loved it. I mean, what I liked about it is the artwork's fantastic, but the story itself was really good. It reminded, when I was reading it reminded me of watching an old Twilight Zone or Tales of the Unexpected or that kind of stuff, because it was quite a riveting but eerie feel to it, and it captured it really well. And I think the twist at the end is very good. I'm right in saying that is a twist, isn't it?
Yeah, there is. That's really nice to hear that. I mean, huge fan of Tales of the Unexpected. Tales from the Crypt. Obviously, at the moment, Inside Number 9, Black Mirror, that kind of episode.
That anthology stuff. It fitted in with that. It was like I'll say a comic version of that. Really good. And I say the twist at the end. I worked out who the caretaker was at the end. It's a brilliant story and nice twist.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But no, they won't know until they read it. But I suggest that anyone who listens to the show would love this, because the thing about it as well, and Dan would agree with me on this, is that for what I'd say is an independent release, it's so slick and it's very well printed. The paper it's printed on is fantastic. The whole look and design of it is pure quality.
It's actually better quality than some mainstream comics that you get. If you go down your local sort of friendly comic store, there are some some of the mainstream comics that are out there. They're printed so sort of cheaply and stuff. But it just oozes quality. And when I opened it, I thought, wow, this, the wow factor's there definitely from the outset.
100%.
It's been so much fun to do, and definitely following on that kind of tradition of what the whole premise was to do an individual story kind of issue. So there's 2 more to go, and they're both going to be quite different, but in the same context have some kind of threads of similarity between them. So yeah, needless to say, I will keep you both posted on future ones.
Excellent. And what we'll do is we'll put a link on the Facebook page to the comic site, so people can go and have a look and hopefully order a copy from you. But it's called Malevolents, and as I say, it's that writing stories like that takes real skill. You only have to look at things like Inside Number 9, where each episode itself is a masterpiece. I think you look at the way they twist and turn and the thing that happens. You can't just. You have to have a talent for writing that type of material, and I think you've definitely got it there with Malevolence.
Oh, thanks very much. It's I really like the fact of those stories, which, I mean, I know when you spoke to Reece Shearsmith about it, the fact, as he said, there's almost kind of a bit of there's a view of, certain commissioners maybe not being as keen to put these things on TV anymore, which certainly makes no sense whatsoever. Because I always think they're great. If you don't like one, then you've got an option next week of something perhaps set in a totally different world, which could equally appeal. So hopefully it triggers a bit more of a demand for it, which would be fantastic.
Yeah. Did you see last week's Inside Number 9 with the call centre?
Yes,
I did. I think that's my favourite so far.
It is my favourite so far. And I was all the way, I was just so cleverly done with the little, with the sort of the multiplex camera, with obviously the main one on, the I can't remember the character's name.
Steve Pemberton's character. Yeah.
Steve Pemberton's character, yeah. And then obviously you got the little side cameras where you see people wandering around. And I think it's one of those things you have to go back and watch it again so you can see what's sort of happening, because you get little clues all the way through. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who's not seen it yet, but the the sting in the tail of that one is the best one I've ever seen.
It's an amazing twist. You know what I mean? It's a double twist, I'd say, as well. Really, you know, it was so unexpected. I mean, the thing is, these days we've seen so much. I mean, with people, we consume so much TV and films these days. Years ago, you know, you only watched what was on telly or at the cinema. You know, nowadays people got Netflix, they've got online streaming, they've got YouTube, you know, DVDs and stuff like that. We've seen so many things, so it's very hard still to surprise or astonish people because stuff tends to be quite repetitive. A lot of ideas have been regurgitated. So to have things that have got a twist, you know, like in Malevolents, there's a good twist at the end of that as well. You know, these things that surprise you, you don't expect to jump out of the blue. It's quite rare these days, and to see it, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the first series. Was it A Quiet Night In? The silent one, which was just it's just absolutely like the most amazing, probably the most amazing thing I've seen on TV last year. It was just so eloquently done and faultless.
It's a beautiful program, and I'm so glad that it's got a second series. It's because I feel we need stuff more like that. Because the thing is, there's very much a focus towards American programs where you watch the character's journey and it builds over 25 series and stuff like that, you know, which doesn't really interest me. I mean, I like short, twisty stories, like Tales Unexpected, like things like this, because you don't know what you're going to get.
Definitely.
You know,
it's like a paranormal snack type thing.
Yeah.
You can just sort of have it, digest it and think, wow, and, you know, where's the next one coming? And you can just sort of, you know, as Tom said, you can change it around from week to week and have such a diverse array of stories that it keeps the watcher coming back, because it's like watching MTV when you're watching music videos. You just don't know which one's coming on next, and you're compelled to carry on watching it because even if one of them isn't that good, you kind of think that the next one might be better, or, you know, so it just generates that type of interest.
Exactly. I mean, I feel that as well. You get these sort of sharp stories. You know, you can just put one on one and watch it at any time. You know, whereas if you're watching something like, well, it doesn't interest me really, things like Breaking Bad, you've got to invest a lot of time in getting into something like that over sort of 5 series, and God knows how many hours it lasts. You've got to follow the character's development of it and entwined. You know, you have to put a lot of time, and if you haven't got the time to invest in the program that much, you just want to watch something for half an hour or something which blows your mind. These sort of programs are the best for it, I feel.
Yeah, definitely, and it seems even more surprising in a kind of culture of maybe people not having enough time to really sit down and kind of concentrate on episodic programs. That, you know, something more of a throwaway program as such, in the nicest possible way, isn't more appealing. Certainly to a commissioner or you know, something like Netflix or Amazon.
So I reckon it'll get a third season, definitely, inside number 9. It'll
yeah, it'll be seen as a classic in the future, like Twilight Zone, Tales Unexpected, I believe, because it's got that vibe to it. You know, it's got that originality. The story's original. You know, there's nothing there I think, oh, they've got that or seen it before. It's very unique.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
let's talk more about you, Tom, I reckon. We've done the inside number 9 bit, which we all love, but I think as we've got you on the show, we're going to interrogate you a little bit more. And even though we've spoke on the phone a few times, I don't really know what your sort of background is and your main influences and stuff. So kick us off with, you know, where it all began, really, your interest in all of this, you know, the bizarre world of the paranormal, I suppose.
Oh, wow. I guess really, I've always had an interest in it. Certainly down in Kent, we've got so many ghost stories and bizarre and odd kind of folklore and that kind of thing. But I worked in design and publishing for a number of years. So really, it was just kind of a case of falling into doing the Spectral Times, which is it's the official magazine of GreatBritishGhost.com.
Yeah.
And that goes out every month, and through it we've got some fantastic writers, and we cover pretty much everything across the board, paranormal, so right through from hauntings through to ghosts and supernatural literature, TV, film, and just kind of every form, really, anything kind of slightly off key, slightly alternate. And we've been really lucky to interview people like Susan Hill from Woman in Black, of course. Stephen Volk, who did Ghost Watch, Andy Nyman.
You've got Andy Nyman's in the latest issue, isn't he? An interview about ghost stories, the show. Is that correct?
He was a while ago, yeah. He's been really kind and, you know, kind of checked out Malevolents and been really kind of communicative. and Lawrence Gordon Clark, of course, as well. So who did all the M.R. James adaptations in around the 70s, 80s.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, on that level, it's just something which it's always been a big kind of interest. I worked around the West End for quite a few years, and of course, you've got Berkeley Square just around the corner. That was always quite fascinating. You've got this reputedly haunted house with a totally blocked off top attic, which no one can still get into today, or supposedly stay the night, as they say. So
we'll have a chat about that on the Paranormal Corner for, you know, some of our listeners who are not aware of 50 Berkeley Square, but it is one of those stories that I definitely remember from being, you know, when I was a youngster, when obviously I was interested in the whole Borley Rectory story, and the 50 Berkeley Square story is definitely one of those stories that stuck in my mind as being very, very mysterious and very creepy. You know, it's just, what the hell did they see in there that caused what happened, without giving too much away before we get onto the section. But you're a bit of a Berkeley Square geek, I believe. It's like you know a lot about it. Is that right?
Probably I've spent way too much time looking into it. It's always fascinating because there's not a great deal there's a lot of like regurgitation of the same sort of stories, but there's not many more new stories about it, simply because I think the business that has it now, which as far as I understand it is a classic book business, generally don't want to kind of talk about it really. So it's played down quite a lot. It's a fascinating case, and certainly one which I'm surprised certainly in fiction and TV and film hasn't been brought up, you know, more.
Yeah, it's got all the classics of it's got all the makings of a classic ghost story, which you do see reflected in quite a few of the sort of the paranormal radio shows from like the 1950s with the ghost stories. It's there's someone turns up at a place, they've got no rooms left apart from one room which no one ever wants to stay in, and the guy's, well, I'll stay in it, you know, I've got no problems with that. And it's the same old thing, they spend the night there and they're found dead in the morning, pretty much. It's that typical, it's the typical recipe for a good ghost story.
Yeah, sort of that kind of theme of it's very sort of M.R. Jamesian, Count Magnus, but I'm sure that kind of finishes in the same way. I'm sure Lord Lyttelton sort of wrote similar books on it. So it's quite an intriguing part of supernatural history, especially in London, where you've got plague pits and just countless burial grounds from hundreds and thousands of years, really. It's quite a fascinating account, really.
Yeah, London itself is just it's just a city. I mean, I think any major city is essentially, but I think London especially, it is essentially a city built on one massive dumping ground for bodies. I think that wherever you walk in London, there's very little places where there isn't or hasn't been a dead body at some point.
Definitely. My dad is from the East End, and he's got memories walking back past the Prospect of Whitby, which is on the pubs. Yeah, it's on. I think it's at the end of Mission Impossible 1, in fact, where they meet for a drink.
Is that down by? It's like down by the station for. Help me out here. I can't remember which station it is. It's on the way to between St Mary's Wharf and Canary Wharf. Is that right? Yeah. The really old pub, really nice, large back garden. That's it. Yeah.
But reputedly, the famous Judge Jeffreys used to go down there, and he used to try all the pirates that were returned to London, and he used to tie them to a pole out the back, and he'd sit there sipping like his ale as the tide would come in, and kind of he'd see them executed and drowned at high tide.
That's right.
So it's really grim. But my dad walked past late one night and said, all the lights were off, and there was definite sea shanties going on, lots of shouting. And you walked all the way around it, and there was absolutely nothing there. So I'm sure that that part of London as well is it's got a lot of gruesome history. Which,
definitely. Was Captain Kidd, I think, one of the people that was executed there, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He was quite a nasty character, I think, wasn't he?
That's right. Because I wanted a seance around there, a pirate seance, and I was trying to get a venue. Prospect Whitby is one to consider. But it's quite creepy. It's like steps to go down into the water, isn't there? I've been there. It's a long time since I've been there.
Yeah, it is. A lot of city types and just bankers probably drinking without any clue whatsoever.
I think it's a George Ramsay. My brain's like, because I'm feeling a bit ill today. It is. Who's the chef who like gives people?
Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. That was it. I don't know where I got George Ramsay from. Sorry, my brain is fried. But I think it's a Gordon Ramsay restaurant now, fish restaurant.
Oh, is it?
I think it is, yeah. Because we used to live in Canary Wharf, and I used to run past it on my way home from when I worked in the city. And I always used to jog past because I always remember the smell of chips and fish. But I think all the way along, the wharfs all along the River Thames. I mean, we used to live in a place called Burrell's Wharf, which is where one of the huge steamships was built, and it was built, and on its maiden, as soon as it was launched, it just went straight into the Thames and sank straight away. And so it was kind of cursed from the start. But our flat or apartment was actually built in the old warehouse. In the old warehouses where the everything was stored. It was they used to use dyes. It was a dye factory, and there was reports of the pigeons used to be purple and yellow and stuff from all the dye that was in the air. But we had sort of paranormal trouble at that place multiple times. It's the only place I've ever had loads of experiences of sleep paralysis, but also kind of strange poltergeist activity as well, things being thrown around and things moving from room to room and light switches operating on their own. And but it was one of those things. I actually stood there and asked it to stop doing it because it was not very pleasant, and it actually did stop. So, sometimes it's as easy as that. It was a very strange place to live.
It's funny, you hear that a lot in certain cases where I saw recently in the news that Crossrail, they've had to kind of, put their plans on hold to a certain section because they've gone through a huge plague pit, which has slowed down the operation. So they're moving quite a lot of bodies from one place to another. Which, that sounded absolutely phenomenally huge.
And there's a ghost station. Is there something about a ghost station has been revealed? I put it on the Mystic Menagerie Facebook page, but they were digging and found a station that was used many moons ago and was just completely bricked up, and it's still all there as it was.
Yeah, 1912 or something. I think something maybe earlier actually.
That sounds amazing. It's one of those places I'd love to go down and look at these. Some of these I know are kind of being talked about, sold on to different conglomerates at the moment. But the Aldwych Station and places like that, which get used a lot in the Bond movies and other Hollywood films that need an empty station, always sound absolutely fascinating about them.
Yeah, I'd just love to have free reign of those tunnels and just go exploring. Just to have a wander around and see what's down there, because there must be so much stuff that is bricked up and lost, or very few people know what's actually there.
You can arrange to go down there. I think there's some site, but you're with them. You can't just go wandering willy-nilly and do what you like. That's the downside of it. But I did read a book about Underground London, it's called, and this bloke went on all these different underground hidden places. You have to arrange it in advance or meet up with people or pay to go on it. And he went on all these different things and sort of wrote them up in this book. And one of them was an underground tube station. But it's quite hard to get on it, I think. But you can get down there with them.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yes. Did you make them? I think Tom mentioned, is it Aldwych, that they open it once a year. They do tours, and I think one of them they actually do a cinema down there, and they show films.
They showed in one of them, I think it was Aldwych, they showed An American Werewolf in London a few years ago.
Oh, that'd have been amazing.
Sounded so terrifying, but but such a great concept. So you have that total immersion experience of that horrible scene where he's being pursued in Tottenham Court Tottenham Court Road, I think.
It's around. It's near Piccadilly, isn't it?
It's Piccadilly, yeah. But there's a tube. The tube scene, isn't there, where the businessman gets off the tube. It's like the last tube at night, and he hears like the howl echoing through the tunnels on the underground.
That's the one I meant. Yeah,
that's and you get the sort of wolf's eye view of him being chased, and then you see like the shot down the escalator where he's at the bottom, and you see the wolf kind of just. I think that's the first time you ever see it in its physical form, like walking.
That's right. And I always, when I got that escalator, I always look down and think of that scene every time I go up it. You can't help it. It has to be done.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's night when you're on your own.
Yeah, but. I'd absolutely, I think the tours of underground stations is something which would really take off if they were well promoted.
Definitely. What's the creepiest place you've been to, Tom? What's the creepiest place you've been to, or you've had access to?
That's a good question. I did go on a ghost hunt years ago at a place called Oxney Bottom, which it's got like a comic name that you probably hear in sort of Noel's House Party, but that was actually terrible. Yeah, and that's a place down in Deal near Dover in Kent.
I know Deal, yeah.
And it's one of those forgotten villages that slowly, it was probably last used in the 1600s and has slowly just kind of disappeared. And there was reports of there's a grey woman which supposedly haunts the area, a small boy that kind of chases people, and it wasn't like nothing particularly. We didn't actually see anything. I went down with two friends about 2 a.m, and we walked around. You're on the edge of this. It's called Oxney Court. It's a very large manor house which has now been done up, and we walked around this kind of very old woods, and there was a kennels at one side of it. We walked up the kennels, and you could hear dogs. It's kind of barking quietly. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
So up. We were trying to find the abbey, which is like the old village abbey or church that used to be based in the middle. And it was really, really hard to find. We eventually kind of Blair Witch style torches hit it. And as we got closer to it, all the dogs, which were like absolute miles behind us, all started howling at the same time, which was really, really weird. And it was, we kind of wandered around it. Loads of kids obviously have broken in, and there's Ouija boards crudely made up on the floor and stuff. But you could definitely hear it sounded like someone was walking around outside, which that was, like 2 a.m. was quite sort of freaky.
Gets the old adrenaline going.
It does. The only other experience that I've had, which was genuinely unnerving, was I used to work for a nightclub in Kent, which was on the site of an old medieval church.
Okay.
And I used to stay quite late used to do nightclub posters. So my job would be to make sure the venues were kitted out for the week, and I stayed quite late on a Friday. And we had the upstairs being made out into like the new wine bar. So we had like a dual door system which went into the upstairs wine bar being built. The builders were using all day, and you get quite used to someone knocking at the door, and I'd have to let them in. And I think I must have been working about 8 or 9 o'clock at night and printing off posters, and there was like the door, there was a knock, and someone tried the handle. I got up and opened it, and there was just no one there, which was really, yeah.
Because Deal itself is quite a creepy place anyway, isn't it? It's a very weird. It's like a seaside town with no spirit to it, no heart and soul.
Definitely, yeah. It feels very kind of. It sounds horrible. It feels very sort of edge of the world. There's not.
It does.
A lot there.
I went to Deal a few years ago myself, and it's a very creepy place.
Really, it's
very.
Sorry.
Very League of Gentlemen, isn't it?
Yeah, very Royston Vasey. I think it's got an old smuggler's history to it. So yeah, sort of.
It has. Yeah.
Like the poor brother of Dover, probably, which is the nicest place in the world anyway. So.
Yeah, I was stranded in Dover once, and for 2 weeks when I was in the Navy, because our boat caught fire in the middle of the channel, so we got towed into Dover, and we had to stay there for 2 weeks. And I must admit, I've been to some dodgy places on this planet, but 2 weeks in Dover, and I was ready to leave. Because there's not much to do really in the daytime other than go to a few bars. But the amount of it is literally like going back to the time when smuggling was rife, there's actually, you've still got the modern day smugglers meeting in the bars and doing their deals, and obviously the ferries coming in and out with stuff on board, and it was really dodgy. It felt like I was in some sort of modern pirate type film, and I must admit I was pleased to leave, but I've never been to Deal, even though it's so close. And obviously, I'm in Kent, but I've never been there. But
there's a lot of old smugglers' cottages there, because when I went there, I was actually looking for a ghost of a different kind, because I was writing a book at the time about, I'm a big carry-on nerd, I'm into carry-on films, and Charles Hawtrey lived in Deal. When he retired in his last years, he was an alcoholic in Deal, quite a nasty piece of work, and I was writing a book about him, so we went to Deal and visited his house, which was an old smuggler's cottage.
Wow.
It used to be a smuggler's cottage, very old, about 400 or 500 years old, But the thing is, the locals there's some really creepy pubs, like his local pub we went to, and places where we interviewed people that met him or knew him. They didn't have a good word to say about him.
Really?
There's a base saying he's a horrible person. He's a spit. Kids say starts with autograph. Which always the man it spitted them in the face, called people. Do you know what I mean? And he was a nightmare. And they were saying that he was banned for literally every single pub in the area, because he was just got pissed out of his head, and he'd try on with different people and stuff like that. And they said there was like a local naval college there, with like young blokes training to go to the Navy.
Yeah.
And he'd go there and pick blokes out. It's like a naval music college, I think. And he'd pick up these young blokes and take them back to his flat.
Jeez.
He lived at his cottage, and once there was a fire there, and he was caught without his wig, in his pajamas. They had to rescue him. And when the fireman carried him out of the house, he was getting very excited about it. And he was sort of saying, my boyfriend and my cigarettes are in there, you better get them back. So we tried to find this bloke who was in the cottage at the time with him, but we couldn't find him. He still lived locally, apparently, but he was very embarrassed about the whole thing.
Yeah,
wow.
I bet.
But the locals, they were quite keen to talk about him, but none of them. Only one bloke sort of said, I felt sorry for him because he was famous and he'd become an alcoholic, etc. But the rest of them, it's a very, very closely knit community. But I think quite a few celebrities lived there. I think they said Vic Reeves lived there, and I think it was Jan Lumley, and arty people, artists lived there. But it seems like a very strange part of the world.
Yeah, it really is. Sandgate isn't too far away, that's quite nice. But again, a really big smuggling history. It's really interesting because the next comic's going to be a smuggling kind of ghost story. So I'm in Rye this weekend, where it's based. So you sort of right on the edge of the Sussex coast.
Yeah, Rye is gorgeous. If you're looking for props and antique bits and bobs, that is probably the place to go. It's got such a massive array of antique shops, hasn't it?
It has, and I think it's got some preservation orders, so they can't really change the town from. It looks like something from several hundred years ago, but still, kind of unfaulted. No modern buildings or anything in the middle of town.
No, it's just like a lump with a church on top, isn't it? So when you look at it from down by Camber Sands, you just see like a mound with a church, and you can imagine in like medieval times if you were walking along the sand flats, there'd just be like this town sticking up out of because it's very flat round there, isn't it? So you just see it sticking up, and we love it down there. But the only time we ever go down is obviously when the kids are off school, and just getting in and out of there, the traffic is abysmal. So I tend to stay away and only go when it's out of season. But it's a wonderful place for finding strange knickknacks and artifacts.
Yeah, another place that's quite strange in Kent is a place called Sandwich, because it's very old. It's like going back into medieval times. The streets are very, really old and cobbled and that kind of thing. And they're the sort of houses, you can imagine people throwing their sewage out the window and, burning witches in the square. It's got quite a really sort of spooky feel there. It's all cream tea shops and stuff like this. When we went there, it was really strange. It's like a square. And it's obviously a place where I think they used to have stocks there. Used to throw stuff at people. But this weird band turned up, like Morris dancers, just on a Sunday afternoon, and started dancing and playing music with no one watching them, apart from us two.
Yeah.
But it's a sort of place you could imagine a cult, that you move there and you find out they're all part of a cult and they're going to execute you at midnight in this village square. It was a really little creepy vibe to it, but I liked it. It's a good creepy vibe,
Kent is full of that, though. I think when you go down to Hastings and stuff, there's a hell of a lot of Morris dancers and pagan rituals that they still do annually. There's one coming up on the May Day bank holiday. I don't know if you've heard about it, Tom, where they parade through the streets. It's almost like a Green Man type festival, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't that because I know they do an annual Green Man festival down sort of Hastings Way, which always sounds brilliant. I thought, but I've always missed it, unfortunately, every year. But it's, yeah, I love all that. But I mean, it sounds, there's something completely mad about it as well, which makes it all more enticing.
Yeah, it's quite. I think we went with the kids and we didn't know it was going to be on, and just a group of people came down the hill dressed. I think they were almost like clowns, but they had like almost like Punch and Judy type masks on, and it looked like something out of the Clockwork Orange. It was quite intimidating. With these, all of them were blokes, and they'd all been drinking as well, dressed as Mr. Punch, walking down the hill with like Doc Martin boots on, and I think they had bats and stuff as well. So, yeah, it was very surreal.
Very Wicker Man,
but that is Kent, I suppose.
Yeah,
that's why I live here.
Yeah, very very Wicker Man. Yeah,
yeah.
Mayday procession.
So your magazine, Tom, the Spectral Times. So this comes out once a month, is that right?
Yeah. It's about once a month, and then we go out to readers worldwide. So it's available on Calameo. So it's like on a digital platform. So we've got videos and online audio content, but also at the same time, people can buy it in print and get it ordered to their houses as well.
Okay, brilliant. Is that how because obviously the digital version's free, isn't it, to read when you just read it online? Is that correct? Yeah. So when it's print on demand, because obviously, I mean, when we did the Mystic Menagerie, we were looking at all sorts of different options available to us, and ours was just, you bought it and it was sent digitally, which, I don't know if you know or not, just led to it being file shared and pirated. So having a free magazine is great. But the print on demand one, does a certain percentage go to you for that, or is it?
It's all done through a platform called MagCloud. So I think it's a HP-owned platform. So at the moment, we're looking to try and get it sourced, because it's all through the States. So we're trying to get it sourced in the UK office. The thing kind of being against it is the fact that the States do it really well, and it's hard to get someone else that does like a decent print-on-demand service. But it is, unfortunately, it just makes the costs of it slightly more expensive. But I'm sure. How long did the magazine run, the Mystic Menagerie?
It's 4 years, wasn't it, Freddie?
About 4 or 5 years, I think. Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
4 years. It wasn't a regular one though. We just did it when we had enough material to fill it out with. So, but because I was the art director on there, from a layout perspective, I just know how much hard work it is putting a magazine together. So, do you do all of the layout and everything yourself as well?
Yeah. So wow. It's been good fun, because it's been from like a background of done some phenomenally boring corporate magazines and kind of Celtic football magazines. So it's quite nice to kind of go crazy, but at the same time, absolutely, can be exhausting and quite hard at times. So I
mean, the presentation and the layout is top notch. I would say it's better than most magazines you would get, off the shelf in, say, WH Smith or something. So, to see it was just. It just oozes quality, and it just draws you in, the subjects and the topics. And I think with the majority of like our reader base and listener base is essentially US. So even though a lot of the articles in there are like UK ghost stories and that, I think our American friends would certainly be wise to go and pick up a copy and have a look at it.
Absolutely, and we've been really lucky to work with some overseas different groups as well. It kind of started off based around the UK, but by no means is it exclusive. So we worked with Spark in Canada, and teams from as far as a wide as Rome, New Zealand, and kind of the forums are set up online in terms of the Facebook group, and we're always interested to hear of hauntings. And anything kind of slightly ghostly or a bit crazy, on the supernatural, basis going on from people all around the world, definitely.
Yeah, and how many issues are you up to now on it? Are you,
this is issue 15 coming out at the moment.
Okay, brilliant.
So it's admittedly it's not been going quite as long as Mystic Menagerie has been, but it's needless to say, it's been great to feature you guys, and I'm sure our readers will certainly love to hear more about you both.
Yeah, it's
definitely. You're definitely on the same wavelength as us. You know, we like strange, weird stories and just spooky things generally. You know what I mean? And art as well. Anything that's sinister, dark art. The darker, the better.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's certainly on my wavelength. Absolutely.
So, what are your future plans with the magazine itself? Have you got any sort of major plans lined up for it?
At the moment, it's there's a couple of things in the works in terms of larger stories and potential collaborations with some overseas paranormal outfits. So last year we were involved with Paracon, which is UK's largest paranormal festival. A great guy called Matt Hall who runs the whole thing, and that's gone particularly well. The first, I think he was pleasantly surprised by how well the first event went. I think they do that. That's run in Derby every year. So the view is, I think this year is taking that kind of to a bigger level. So hopefully, in terms of working with him, there'll be more features of more guests. We act as official sponsors to the festival as well. So yeah, hopefully that's kind of we're just going to be supporting that as much as possible. And yeah, we've got some exciting things in the pipeline, working with some upcoming supernatural movies as well.
Great.
So yeah, we'll watch this space.
Excellent. So what we'll do now, I think we'll take a short break and we'll come back with Paranormal Corner.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
Now look, Doc, we're buddies, okay? But don't try to convert me.
I'm trying to prepare you. My name's Marquay, Dr. Marquay, a scientist interested in the supernatural. The unnatural, if you like.
Welcome back, and this time it's the Paranormal Corner, where we discuss real-life spooky events, and we've got a very interesting topic this month on the Mystic Menagerie. We're talking about the Berkeley Square hauntings, and Tom is I'd say he's a bit of an authority on this. Tom, aren't you? It's an interest, a passion of yours, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always been an interesting case. London's obviously got so many different haunting cases and ghost stories from hundreds and hundreds of years. It's something which is really different and not massively perhaps well known worldwide. I'd assume.
No, I don't feel so. No, not as much as it's not. I don't think it's well known or covered as much as Fawley Rectory and things like this. I think it's in the sort of ghost books, but it's not considered given the same sort of publicity or the same prominence as that. I feel.
No, not at all. And it's always been quite fascinating by the fact of it involves someone actually supposedly shooting a ghost, which is always intriguing. And also the fact that supposedly the company that still uses the building have issues with upstairs where allegedly, I emphasise allegedly, there's a 1950s police report on the wall stating that the fourth floor is structurally unsound, and that I think two colleagues, if no one can be left in the building to lock up alone, they have to be accompanied at all times, which stems supposedly from the haunting. Make of that what you will. It's all alleged and claimed.
So when does it all start? When's the first kind of report of something happening at this location, which is in Mayfair? The actual building is still there, isn't it, in Mayfair? And as you say, there's a print shop there, a bookshop essentially.
Yeah, it's a really affluent part of London. It's a really gorgeous area. I think you've got something like Aston Martin's on one of the corner, so it's a kind of thriving, busy square, and it's a very old-fashioned, I suppose, like a four-tier townhouse, which is on the far side of Berkeley Square, which it's got Mags, the booksellers. So from what I understand, I think they sell classic books. And yeah, it dates back, from what I understand, right back to the 1800s. And there were several different cases of... there's several different ghosts which haunt the area. There was a little girl who supposedly haunts the top attic, who was supposedly killed by sadistic servants in the Victorian era. And there was reports of a young woman who supposedly committed suicide after being abused by her uncle. And then around, I believe it was about the late 1800s, that there was a guy who moved in there called George Canning, I believe. And then he lived there for a while, experienced strange paranormal activity, and from there it became notorious to the extent that maids were found dead after cleaning the rooms and in the top floor in the attic. And basically, that it culminated in 1872 with Lord Lyttelton, who stayed in the house on a bet. He reputedly took a blunderbuss filled with silver coins and stayed in the haunted room. And then he reported that in the middle of the night, something black lurched at him, which he shot with a blunderbuss, and it vanished.
Wow.
So it's quite fascinating. But from there, in like 10 years later, about 1887, two sailors stayed in the house, and one was found thrown from the upstairs window, I think impaled on the railings outside, because they were all kind of like Victorian terraces with the kind of traditional railings. So he was found dead, and another one nearly delirious. And they described a strange black tentacle thing emerging, so slightly sort of Cthulhu kind of.
Definitely sort of H.P. Lovecraft stuff going off there. I mean, it's not very often you get so many deaths associated with a haunting, is there? I mean, if you count the deaths up, I mean, you've got obviously one of the sailors died, then you've got the maid who stayed there for the night and went mad and then died in the asylum the day after. And then I think there are how many deaths in total are there associated just with that one room, the haunting? Is it 2 or is there more than that?
I think there's at least 4.
Four deaths. That itself is a rare occurrence, isn't it? I mean, you usually get people scared to the point where they might sort of remain slightly unhinged for the rest of their lives, but actually physically thrown through windows and impaled on railings and stuff that's not something you come across.
Yeah, I suppose it's really strange that you've got somewhere which is in the centre of London, especially around the West End, and rather than being tucked away in the suburbs like the Enfield Poltergeist or a case like that, so you've got tourists going past it every day. And I suppose the ongoing reports that things being seen from the top windows. There's a brown mist and lights which supposedly haunt it. It's quite a fascinating case, and no doubt there'll be more and more reports with the years as they go on.
Is the actual room itself? Can you see the room from the street below if you were to look up at it? Can you sort of go on Google Maps and look at the building and see the very room type thing?
You can vaguely. I did a lot of Google mapping for Malevolents, because Malevolents is based quite a lot around the number 50, and unfortunately there's a lot of tree cover, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But you can vaguely walk around it. It's a dark, ominous looking building. I think it might even have a plaque. You could probably make out the bookseller's name on the wall. So it's worth it. I'd recommend a Google walk past if you're not in the UK. It's certainly worth having a look.
Here's the big question, though. Given everything that's happened there, if the company who own that now would just say, okay, you can stay there for one night, would you stay there in the room?
100%, definitely.
Would you? Yeah. Okay. What about you, Freddie?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Wakey.
A lot of people would have a great time. Yeah, definitely. No, I definitely. I mean, if I could get in there to do an event, I'll definitely do a seance there. 100%.
It's almost like it's not. No one can, from what I can gather, no one can really pin it down to one particular haunting. It's almost as if the thing that's there is just like an accumulation of all the bad energy, all the bad stuff that's happened there into one really sort of crazy, powerful sort of spirit, or you know what I mean? It's like, because as you say, it's like seen as a tentacled mist type thing. It can't be attributed to, say, the girl who was abused by her uncle, or even one of the people who've previously died there. It's almost like an energy form that feeds off people's fear.
Absolutely. There was another notable one of a guy was jilted I think on his wedding day, and he supposedly locked himself in the attic and slowly went mad. And that's I think it started falling into disrepair about that time. That was like the late 1800s when all of it seemed to peak. But again, there's a lot of old legends around London, which no doubt partly due to the press, penny dreadfuls, just kind of raising rumour and just making stories up. Quite a lot of it. So no doubt a lot of it is embellished and it's just been kind of Chinese whispered throughout the years.
So do you know the company who owns it now? Is it like a private company? Is it?
Yeah, it's Mags. I can't
Mags
remember.
Brothers.
Mags Brothers. That's
Antiquarian book dealers. Sorry, I've got my Wikipedia page up in front of me. I thought I'd have a look and thing is, I think what you should try and do is get a job at Mags Brothers, almost like an undercover type of guy, and see if you can infiltrate and get up there and.
That would be excellent.
It'd be like Watchdog, but with ghosts, and you sort of go undercover to try and figure out like people who are swindling people. So get a part-time job at Mags Brothers. I'm sure they must have some cleaning company who like work there as well, who are contracted out.
And accidentally lock myself in the attic.
At least get to have a look at it, or take a photo, or leave a recording device in there overnight or something. I mean, there's never say never. There's got to be a way to at least sort of.
There's always a way.
There is always a way, but you might get you arrested. However,
that would be a good reason for getting arrested as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a story, isn't it? And you get a good story out of it. So, have you ever interviewed any of the people that work there, or?
Sorry, Freddie.
Hello. Have you ever interviewed any of the people that work there about it, or asked them about anything they've experienced there?
No. I did try getting in touch a while ago through the Spectral, and unfortunately, I didn't hear back. And needless to say, I'd be hugely interested to talk to anyone that maybe has any experience of it. There's a few sketchy reports online of people that maybe have seen things just passing through Berkeley Square. From what I know, I think they're not particularly keen. The actual staff aren't particularly keen to maybe talk that much about the building itself. So then again, I suppose that makes for a richer story. To the fact that you could say this incredible story, but at the same time, no one's allowed really to go in or investigate properly. So yeah, I'd certainly be interested to talk to someone about it, though.
That adds to the mystery, I think. The fact that they don't talk about it, and they don't want anyone talking about it, and there's supposedly this, as you say, like a notice on the wall saying that people shouldn't be left alone there, and it all adds to the legend and reinforces it, and it sometimes makes you think, are they doing that to keep the story? I mean, I don't know, because the story isn't that well known, is it, amongst sort of paranormal enthusiasts? It's not like you could talk to most uninitiated people about Borley Rectory, and they may have heard about it, but the Berkeley Square ghost, it's not like they'd be doing it to keep the legend alive, because it's quite it's not really that well known.
No,
so they're not really doing anything with it.
It's puzzling, because it's not the only other reason that they're keeping it so quiet is because there is genuinely something there that they uneasy about.
Maybe they just
they might be controlled by.
Yeah, maybe they occasionally just feed it
controlled by some force.
Maybe it's like The Omen, where they've got the nanny who is actually sort of one of Satan's like army, who's actually looking after looking after Damien, in the same way that, without wanting to start a lawsuit, everyone at Mags Brothers actually is part of some massive conspiracy to like keep whatever is there, like some Lovecraftian demon in the attic, and like sort of keep it well fed and watered.
Absolutely.
Well, is there staff time over there? Does the members of staff keep leaving and never be seen again?
Maybe that's the key. To find out if any local Office Angels branches deal with temporary staff at Mags Brothers.
Or you see a photograph. You see a photograph of someone from Mags Brothers from like 1937, when they took over the building, and then like you do a bit of a photo reconnaissance thing, and you take a photograph of the chap who comes out the door, you know, today, 2015, and he looks exactly the same. He's not aged.
That'd be fantastic. To the UK version of The Shining, that'd be amazing. Yeah,
is it a terraced building?
It is. I mean, to walk past it just looks like a very nice, very well-to-do book company. It doesn't look necessarily like a stereotypical old haunted house as such. It's in the dark it looks a lot more sinister, but it's, that part of London is very old, and Victorian terraces just have that kind of Gothic air to it quite a lot.
Because what I'm thinking is, if it's terraced, then there's obviously a room directly adjacent to it in the next building.
There were reports supposedly of a family in the next building. I think their daughter had a room in the attic, and she kept complaining that a man was coming in and keeping her awake, talking to her at night. One of the supposed reports. It's always one of the things apparently with hauntings that, if you're in a terrace house and it's in one house, then sometimes they do move around a bit between properties, which makes it all the more slightly worrying and terrifying.
It does make you wonder that how, if something so spiritually as strong as whatever's in there can just be separated by essentially sort of 15 centimetres of brickwork, you would have thought that it was like the residual sort of energy from it would spill over into adjacent rooms, and maybe just that there's a massive pentagram carved into the floor in there, and it stays within its inside its boundary, so it's not going to get out. But
quite possibly, I wouldn't put it past them. Again, saying nothing against the Maggs Brothers, I'm sure they're a fantastic work outfit and not a cult, but you never know.
No, well, they've been there long enough. Was it 1937? They've had the building since. And,
Crowley could have opened. He could have been the one who opened the shop. Do you know what
he could have been. That would have been the first amazing story.
Yeah, it could have been he cut the ribbon when they opened it or something like this. You just don't know, Talking about wandering spirits, did I tell you about the experience I had with a wandering spirit at that time when I had to sort of exercise the house?
No.
I got a phone call, it's like a paranormal society, a local one. I won't say any names, so I'll kind of keep it, but there's a paranormal society, and they said that there's this house that's incredibly haunted. This spirit screaming and making unearthly sounds and terrifying their kid. And the family couldn't live there. They actually stayed in a hotel and B&Bs until this went. And they said I wanted someone to come around who can try and get rid of it. So they contacted myself. So I went down there to this house. It was like a normal house, and what it was is like an estate that had been built, and there's like a really old manor house on the hill. It's quite an old-fashioned area around there. But the estate lived in was quite new. It must have been like 60s or something like this. So when we went there was it's weird because there was a kid's, it's like a drawing board, like where they write on the coloured pens, like a white clean board.
Yeah, a whiteboard. Yeah.
And like words kept appearing on this board, and the kid the kid couldn't write. He was only young, and like words appeared on this board, and things were being moved about the house. And there's banging upstairs. Then the kid apparently saw this spirit, and it's like a bloke dressed in like a poacher's outfit, the way it's described, talking to the kid, and she's sort of saying, "Oh, he's my friend," and all this kind of stuff. Like, at first they thought she had an imaginary friend until they started having these noises in the house. And we did like a session with a seance and everything else on the Ouija board. And it turns out that what came through is this spirit was someone who lived in that area, lived in the manor house, like a gardener or something like this, and they were trying to find their way back to their home. But this housing estate had popped up, and they couldn't recognise where they were. So they went into the nearest house and started causing chaos.
Oh, right.
And that's what it was. It was like a spirit trying to find its way back to what it knew at the time it was around. So these new buildings were confusing it. So it's quite like wandering around, because sometimes it was in their house, sometimes the neighbours experienced it. So it's quite a big thing in this road. They were all talking about it, but when we arrived, it was like a welcoming party. It's very, very bizarre. But that's like a wandering spirit. And it's quite weird, but it made this really unearthly sound when I was there, because when we went, we thought it had gone. And when I went outside, went to go to the car, all the family came running out, and there was this unearthly sound. It wasn't like a human or an animal. It's just like it was a sound that almost went through your whole body, and it's like the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. And then we went back in there, and we sort of asked it to leave, and then and since then they've been okay. You know what I mean? The people have said that it hasn't come back. So, but it was a very weird night that was.
What was the sound like, Freddie?
It was like a shrieky sort of. It's like a really sort of that sort of noise like this, like a scream, but it's a mixture. It wasn't animal, it wasn't human, but imagine a combination of the two.
Like a dragon.
Yeah, so if you say it's an animal noise, no, it's human. It's a human noise, no, it's animal, but it's like in between the two. So it's like a human feel to it, but also an animal. It was just unearthly. But it was almost like reverberated. So when it was like screeching like this, it seemed to go through your whole body.
Jesus, that sounds terrifying.
And where was it coming from? Just from the air type thing, wasn't?
Yeah, it just seemed to be like within you, but everybody else heard it. It was in the house, and it was horrible. It was horrible sound,
Yeah, I think I've had when I was living at that flat in Canary Wharf, when I had my first bout of sleep paralysis. One thing that struck me odd about it was before it happened, obviously it was daylight. I was lying on the bed and I was like sort of facing out towards, there was the balcony and the river, and I was looking out and it was sunlight, it was daylight, which was the weird thing. And the first thing I recalled before anything happened was hearing this really strange, high-pitched droning sound, which was coming from it wasn't coming from anywhere external. It was almost like it was without wanting to sound crazy, but it was actually coming from inside my head. You know what I mean? It was
I know what you mean, yeah.
It was it was an internal sound, and it was like but high pitched. And I was like, what the fuck is that sound? And as I tried to roll over to sort of find the source of the sound, that's when the sleep paralysis took hold. But I don't know, it wasn't sleep paralysis because I was awake when it happened, but I was being pinned down onto the bed by something. And I had to use all of my strength to roll over onto my back. And by the time I got onto my back, it let go. And then I got like this huge adrenaline rush. And it was the weirdest thing ever. And when I looked down sort of to where... because what started it off was I heard that sound. And then as I heard that sound, I felt the bed sink down behind me as if someone had sat down on the bed. And that was the thing that caused me to roll over. The actual sinking of the bed. So I was like, well, who the hell is sat behind me? And then as I tried to roll over, there was nothing there. But there was almost like an arse cheek mark on the bed where someone had been sat. I think that was the craziest thing. And it wouldn't, whatever it was, wouldn't do anything to my wife. It was only interested really in me. And it would be like as soon as my wife left for work in the morning, give it 5 minutes and then something would start happening. So, it was very... I got to the point where I just used to get up with her and go to work because I just didn't want to be in the flat on my own.
That's strange.
Yeah, but that strange kind of sound, like a high-pitched drone was there again. And I've spoken to other people who've had like a sleep paralysis type things, and they've noticed a high-pitched drone sound as well. I've no idea what you would attribute it to.
No, this is like that. It's like human mixed with animal. It's just odd. It's very odd, and it felt, like you say, it felt like it's going through you. It was external but internal at the same time. It's just a weird. You can't even describe how strange it felt.
It's like almost like a frequency passing through you that resonates your, I suppose your ossicles at the same time, if you know what I mean. Almost like a wave of energy that creates a sound or something. It's, who knows.
And the weird thing about it was everybody in that building when I experienced this, they all felt at the same time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like a solo experience. It's everybody in the room at the same experience. There was just the faces just went white as a sheet,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's very strange.
So the whole thing about Berkeley Square then, Tom, obviously, how old are you, by the way? You're in your 30s?
Yeah, I'm 33.
33, okay. So potentially, or, if you have a healthy life and everything, so you've got like possibly another over 50 odd years in you. So there's a high possibility that Mags Brothers will eventually move out and someone else might essentially move in. Is it a place that you're always going to keep your beady eye on in case anything happens like that, like there's a handover of ownership?
Yeah, definitely. I'd be really intrigued. As you mentioned before, it's just it's probably one of the only places I know of that has actual deaths related to a haunting, especially in London. The fact it's in the middle of London, and these have never really kind of been tackled properly. A lot of it's just kind of lore and legend. and kind of Chinese whispers. I'd definitely be interested in kind of keeping an eye on it, seeing what happens. That whole area is riddled with plague pits and is it? I'm trying to remember the guy who wrote The Monkey's Paw. Someone Jacobs, I think. The famous kind of.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Is it W. Jacobs? I could be completely wrong.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
He used to live. I did a ghost tour there years ago, and he used to live opposite on the other edge, Berkeley Square, and he had a really weird experience, which supposedly inspired Monkey's Paw. So, I mean, that whole kind of area is just riddled with sort of ghost stories and hauntings, supposedly. It's always just very interesting to find out, in such a modern area, what maybe, businesses are putting up with on a daily basis, and, they don't want to talk about it, understandably, just for bad press, or they don't want the attention as such. So, yeah, I think Green Park around the corner has got like the most amount of buried bodies per inch in a park in London or something. So, and it's such a beautiful park that, of course, you never necessarily think that. So,
yeah. I think definitely I think one of our goals on our Patreon thing is that if we get like a monthly Patreon sort of subscription of about $500, me and Freddie are actually going to go and do a bizarre day out in London. So I think 50 Berkeley Square will definitely be one of the places we'll stop outside and at least all stop and point up at the window anyway.
Fantastic. Well, needless to say, if that time does come up, I will happily join that tour. Sounds amazing.
No, yeah, as you say, there's so many places in London. You could probably do a bizarre week in London. You could just wander aimlessly through London and, you just go from one strange story to one ghost story to an interesting film set to another. I think that's why so many people make a living out of doing all these various tours of London, because it is just a huge melting pot of interesting things, especially paranormal related ones.
Oh, definitely. It's full of history, isn't it?
Yes, I did a Ripper tour last year, and I was amazed. I think we literally queued up with about 7 other tours going on for the different locations. Like, it was a very surreal situation around Mitre Square. So your part's waiting for the next tour to go. They've got a tour in front of them, and you've got a tour behind you. Just literally so many going on at the same time. There's some very creepy places around London.
As I say, I lived there for 5 or 6 years, and I would never want to go back and live there, but I do enjoy the odd visit. I went to Baker Street to the Sherlock Holmes Museum a few weeks back, just to sort of take some photographs for the sort of Kickstarter I'm working on to do with Arthur Conan Doyle. And that building is really interesting. You kind of get to wander around it under your own steam. You don't have a guided tour. And obviously it's all based on the fiction of Sherlock Holmes. So there's characters and props from books and everything. But the interior in the building itself is amazing to look at. It's all kept, within the right period. And but as I say, it is crammed full of tourists as well. So it's one of those places you want to catch when it's a bit quieter.
Isn't supposedly the cafe next door has become notorious from Sherlock? I've heard.
Yes.
Visiting that now. Is it Zippies or something similar to that? Speedies?
It's what, sorry?
Something like Speedies or Zippies. It's got like a crazy name, but loads of tourists are going there now, getting like a pizza taken outside, because it's obviously where Benedict Cumberbatch and that's it.
There's literally people queuing up to have the photograph taken outside the door on Baker Street. So, if you want your photograph taken there, I just wanted a picture of the door with no one in the picture, but I had to wait 15 minutes while numerous Japanese, Polish, Russians, they all had the photographs taken there. It was just crazy.
Wow, that's serious.
Yeah, it is. So, I think if people want to know more about the Berkeley Square Ghost, is there a definitive book that can go to, or a site, or is it just one of those things that you would have to look up on the internet? Is there one particular publication that covers it in the greatest detail?
To be honest, from personal experience, not really. It's scattered stories right across the web. Wikipedia is, of course, like the best place just to get the basic facts. If it's something which generally interests you, I'd highly encourage just a lot of Google trawling and going from paranormal sites, because it's there's a lot of crazy myths and legends tied up with that place, and it's certainly worth delving into.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
We're going to take a short break and we'll be back in a moment.
Hello, and we'd also, especially on this Mystic Menagerie, we've got something very interesting for you for the first time ever. We have a competition. And this is thanks to Thom, who's our special guest this edition. And we have a copy of his fantastic Malevolents up for grabs here. So, Dan, it's a review they need to put on here, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah. In order to get your hands on a fresh off-the-press copy of Click Click Malevolents by Thom Burgess, all you need to do is head on over to iTunes and leave us a review, preferably 5-star, but tell us what you think about the show. And everyone who puts a review on the website, on iTunes, between now and the next show, the name will go into the hat and we'll send you a free copy of Thom's comic. And, I might even have a dig around in the studio and see what disturbing things I've got lying around. So you never know, you might get a comic and you might also get a goodie bag of all sorts of things from the Lebanon Circle studio. So all you need to do, head over to iTunes, leave us a review, and you could be in with a chance of winning a wonderful prize.
Yep. So yes, get over there, get a review. So you get not only a copy of Click Click, Dan will throw some goodies in as well. So you have a very special bundle arriving for you. So get a review in. The best review wins.
A family pet, a bedtime story, the familiar landscape of childhood.
You have to come out sometime. You can't sulk in there forever.
Where witches and wolves are the forces of evil. Where good will triumph and all will end happily.
Your granny spoils you. She makes you think you're something special. That red shawl.
But this is no fairy tale. This is where legend ends and survival begins. Where the dreams of childhood hold no promise of a happy ending.
Big eyes you have.
Hello and welcome back to the Mystic Menagerie podcast. We haven't spoken about a film for a while, so we thought we'd get our heads together and talk about probably what I would consider to be one of the most iconic horror films of the 80s, and that is The Company of Wolves by Neil Jordan. It was made in 1984, so quite a long time ago, but it's timeless. One of the things that really pisses me off about The Company of Wolves is that if someone says to you, what is your favourite film? And you say The Company of Wolves, they'll say, oh, I love that film, with the Red Indians in it. And what's his name?
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner, yeah.
God.
He dances with wolves, yeah. So it's one of the things that really pisses me off about that, because it's such a good film, and it should never be confused with Kevin Costner or Native American Indians. It is an adaptation of a story by Angela Carter, which is based on the Little Red Riding Hood tale. And I think we've spoken about it quite a lot, haven't we, Freddie?
We have tons, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Thom, you've watched it a long time ago, but you watched it recently as a bit of a refresher.
I did. It was one of those 80s films that sort of fade into the back of your memory, where it's all a bit, it's very dreamlike, isn't it? It's very kind of trippy and slightly sort of psychedelic. It's not like a straight film to watch at all.
Yeah, it's like stories within stories within stories. It's almost like an onion of stories, all different layers. Lots of metaphors.
It's the sort of film that you'd see like in the 80s on Channel 4. No other channel, but it'd be Channel 4 that show Company of Wolves. It's that kind of film, isn't it?
I think it only ever has been shown on Channel 4, I think. If I'm right.
It's definitely the sort of thing at Channel 4. Because the thing is, a lot of people, I think that it was successful at the time for a certain audience, but it's not mainstream enough. Like The Howling is, there's no blood and guts, and it's not like a generic sort of formulaic story that someone can follow.
No.
It takes a few watches to fully get the whole... It's atmospheric, I'd say, more than someone just following a linear story. It's the atmosphere of the film that's the most important thing. And it includes the music, the visuals, the locations. There's a lot of atmosphere in it.
Definitely. Well, I think the early 80s, you saw the same thing happen with werewolves as what you saw in the sort of mid 2000s with the whole vampire type thing, you know, when Twilight came out. Because I think you had, within 4 years, you had like Wolfen, The Howling, Teen Wolf, Howling 2, Werewolf Bitch, Full Moon High, Teen Wolf 2, The Company of Wolves, The Howling 3 and American Werewolf in London, all within 3 or 4 years of each other. So at the time, you've got zombies and vampires now. Everyone was werewolf mad in the 80s.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I thought it had a real kind of feel of, you know, like those 80s films similar to like Legend, where slightly fantastical. You've got these kind of really dense, obviously in a studio somewhere, these kind of like weird fantasy style woods, and or like the Wolves of Willoughby Chase, that kind of, you know, that sort of slightly weird feel to it, but at the same time very sinister as well.
Definitely. The sets are very claustrophobic. The trees are, as you say, they're very dense and it's dark all the time, and I've only ever seen that replicated in one film since then, and that is it The Brothers Grimm, when it had like an accumulation of all the, and it had Little Red Riding Hood in there, and the forest, or in The Brothers Grimm, the forest type scenery is almost identical to the sets that they used in Company of Wolves, and I've got no doubt that they took a lot of inspiration from that film for the sets. They're actually all filmed in Shepperton Studios, apart from the actual, I would say, you know, you would be right to call them like the dream sequences, because it is when the girl is asleep, but the actual place where the house is at the beginning, and with the opening titles with the dog running alongside the car, that is very close to where Freddie lives, isn't it, Freddie?
Yeah, and a lot of the sequences in the woods near where I live. There's a place called Burnham Beeches, which is very ancient woodland. There's lots of tales of witchcraft attached to it as well. There was a coven in the 60s called the Clan of Tubal Cain, and this chap, he drank a chalice of wine there and poisoned himself on Midsummer's Eve and as a human sacrifice. So there's this place called Druid's Oak there, and it's very creepy. They filmed like some American Werewolf there, you know, Company of Wolves, and other things like Harry Potter and Spice World, and anything to do with creepy woods or aliens is always filmed there. But you know, you can actually see how creepy it is if you go there. The atmosphere at night, particularly, is the same. I mean, it's open to the public. They close at a certain time. If you go down in your car at night, there's no street lighting. You turn your car lights off and park up. Pitch blackness, just animal sounds. It's just in these really creepy trees, and that's where Company of Wolves was filmed.
Wow, that sounds really good.
It's a great place.
Was it quite a lot? The Wolfman, you know, the latest one with Del Toro, that was up near, I think that was Pinewood.
Yep, that would have been around here, because I live near Pinewood Studios, so a lot of things at Pinewood, they use locations nearby. Like there's a park called Black Park, was used in Harry Potter's Hagrid's house, and a lot of the Carry On films are filmed around here. James Bond, like at Burnham Beach is the location in Goldfinger. There's some scenes from that are filmed there. So these locations, it's sort of like there's a few like big parks or big ancient woodland near where I live, and because Pinewood's nearby, they used them for a lot of films. So even things like Carry On Henry, you know, or Dick Turpin, Karen Dick, and the Dick Turpin with Rich O'Sullivan. That was all filmed in this ancient woodland, because there's nothing there of modern times. If you stand in this woodland, you won't see any planes, cars, do you know what I mean? Anything. You could be back transported to the Middle Ages, and that's why these are used. It's basically like a film set you can walk into, basically.
It suits Company of Wolves so well, though. You know, sorry, what was you going to say, Tom?
I know. I was just going to say a bit of haunting trivia. Of course, you've got Dick Turpin that haunts the woods up there still, apparently, isn't it?
That's right. Every single pub around here that's over a certain age claims that Dick Turpin lived there or played there. You know, and there's one pub I used to go. It's called the Coach and Horses. It was called. Now it's like a daycare centre for kids, but it's like a very old pub, and we used to drink there. But the bloke who ran it, we got to know him. He's like a hippie bloke, and upstairs it was almost the wood and the doors were the same as it was like 500 years ago. The pub hadn't changed at all, and it had a very creepy atmosphere. And he ended up seeing a ghost there, but he wasn't sure if it was Dick Turpin or not. But I think he was trying to say it was, because he knew we were customers there and we'd tell people about it. You know, so we took it with a pinch of salt, really, because I think he was trying to sell it to us.
I had a friend in the Navy called Sticky. His surname was Bun, so he was called Sticky Bun. But it was this Welsh guy, And he, when he was a child, it was somewhere in Wales, Abergavenny, I think he lived near, and he was struggling to keep up with his friends on his bike because his mates had like pedalled off up this hill, and he was sort of left alone. And as he was going along this country lane, a horse jumped over this fence, and it was a highwayman on this massive horse, and it reared up, and this guy had like the proper highwayman's hat on, the mask, and a musket, waved his musket in the air and galloped off up the road in the same direction as where his mates were on the bikes. He absolutely shit himself, pedalled up the road as fast as he could to his mates and said, "Did you see that man on the horse?" And they didn't see him at all. It was like a Dick Turpin type apparition, but there must have been loads of them knocking about at the time. But yeah, he said it was like so quick, but he just remembers it so vividly. Yeah.
I've got a Highwayman ghost story quickly, actually. Yeah, we did a seance once in Datchet near Windsor, which is a really ancient village. And during the Ouija board session, this Highwayman came through and spelled his name out fully, and it's quite an aggressive sort of, spirit and stuff like that. And anyway, when we had the seance in the dark, at the end, this girl found a feather on the table, like a white feather, and she thought it was maybe a relative had sent it or something like this. When we researched the Highwayman's name, we Googled it and looked him up. He was part of a gang called the White Feather Gang and left a feather as their calling card. Because we keep journals of all the stuff that comes up we've got books of stuff that comes up on the Ouija board. We write it all down. So we Googled it, and it's a local highwayman, and he used to leave feathers as like a calling card, white feathers. So it was a very strange evening, that was,
It kind of loops back to Company of Wolves, the highwayman type thing, because the actual wolf at the end, the wolf that from the Red Riding Hood story, either the one that gets to the grandma's house before Red Riding Hood, he's got that kind of highwayman type feel, hasn't he? He's got the tricorn hat, and he's very charming, and he obviously tricks his way to the grandma's house before the girl in it called Rosaline gets there.
That's right, the dandy highwayman.
Yeah, he's actually a ballet dancer, a professional ballet dancer. He was brought in to choreograph some parts of the film. He was brought in to choreograph he was the chap who there's a guy who's always in Neil Jordan films. Is it Stephen Rea?
Yes,
the one who's in the Crying Game.
That's right. Yeah,
he was brought in to choreograph parts for Stephen Rea. But Neil Jordan actually used him as the werewolf at the end because of he was so good at what he did, these sort of mannerisms and the way he moved and everything. But he's almost sort of a bit unearthly looking, isn't he? He's very sort of skeletal with big bushy eyebrows and that. Yeah,
he's perfectly cast, I'd say, is the way to describe it. The polite way to say it. He's perfectly cast in the role that he's in.
Yeah.
Because I've watched other Neil Jordan films since Company of Wolves, but I still think it's the best one. There's a recent one he did. Was it called Byzantium or something like this?
Was that his film? Was it?
Yeah. But okay. I didn't think. I mean, I didn't think much of it. I think it's quite a glossy film, but it didn't have as much atmosphere, or story, or depth to it. Because Company of Wolves is one you can watch again and again. It's like your favourite song, isn't it? You can watch it. You can put it on whenever you like, and it's It's one of those kind of films.
The British, is it the BFA, the British Film, down on the South Bank.
BFI, yeah.
Yeah, the BFI, the British Film Institute, that's it. They did a Classics of Horror about 7 years ago, and The Company of Wolves was one of the films there. So I actually went and was able to watch it back in the cinema as it was in the 80s.
Wow.
And it was chock full of goths, honestly. I went straight from work, so I had a suit on, but I was the only one in there who wasn't completely clad in black. And as I say, I think it's one of the top films on most sort of 80s kind of, anyone who was into anything dark and creepy in the 80s. It's not essentially though. As a horror film though, is it? It is an adult fairy tale. It's got horrific bits in it, but at no point do you ever feel threatened or scared by what's happening. You just think, you watch it as an adult fairy tale, and I think that's what Angela Carter's best known for, essentially. But I think
that's really twisted as well, isn't it? Like there's some phenomenally like dark material that she's put out. It's quite, because you see them as some of them are like dream sequences, I think, aren't they?
Yes.
Like the wedding and where all the guests turn into
wolves, because the witch, the girl who worked there was a witch, wasn't she? And she cursed everyone.
That's brilliant. So well done. Even I seem to have like really vague memories of being small, and I had a special effects book with the guy when he starts changing into the wolf and he kind of rips off his face.
Yeah.
It's just like amazing, but absolutely horrific. Like for the 80s, must have been so much work.
I always remember because my parents got it out on Betamax video when it first came out. So I'd have, 1984, so I'd have been 9 at the time. And I just remember the video cover actually had a photographic still of the wolf's nose coming out of the man's mouth on the cover. Yeah. That was the cover to the film. So, straight away you think, Jesus, what is this film? The cover itself is probably the most horrific thing. When you watch it, in today's terms, it's actually quite tame, but the special effects for the time were some of the best, I'd ever seen. Even today, I still think creatively, it looks so good. You couldn't replace it with CGI.
No way.
Not at all.
I think one of the strange things, though, is obviously because it's quite sexualized, isn't it? I think if you look at the what it's about, essentially, like any Red Riding Hood story, it's about a girl coming of age and her grandma making her aware of the dangers of getting involved with men, which is essentially the wolf. Yeah. And obviously the red cape representing, her starting periods and all that type of stuff. I think that's what when you look at it, that's what it is. But when Neil Jordan was auditioning for the part of Rosaline, they were looking for a girl who was about 16 or 17, But this is one thing I didn't realise. The girl in the film, Rosaline, who's played by Sarah Patterson, is only 12 years old in that film.
That's really strange.
It is, because I just couldn't, when I read it, I couldn't believe it. I thought, there's no way she's 12. I sound like some like dodgy, sound like I've been accused of something on the internet. I didn't know she was 12, honestly, Governor. But when I watched it, I thought, because she's such a good actress.
She's amazing.
She's very mature for her age. That's what she said. Honestly.
I'm sure Roman Polanski would like to have directed that after he found out.
Yeah, definitely. And she never really went on to anything else, did she? She only did a couple of films. Yeah,
I think she'd been in. I think after that she was in a few. I think she might have been in Bergerac or something like that, or Lovejoy, TV type things. But it's got Angela Lansbury in it, which, of course, I don't think she even had to. Neil Jordan just wrote the part for her, essentially, as for Angela Lansbury from watching Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Wow.
So...
and Andy Warhol was going to play the devil, wasn't he?
That was it, yeah.
That would have been phenomenal.
It would.
That would mad, yeah.
Yeah, that's... It'd make a very good devil, Andy Warhol. But they used... Was it Terence Stamp instead they used in the end?
That's still good.
Yeah. I think, but visually, I think if anyone into like bizarre magic or mystery entertainment, and just the atmosphere, the way the story's told, and the actual props and stuff within the film are amazing. Like the dream sequence at the beginning, where she locks herself in an attic room. So you've got the use of an attic room to create a sense of mystery, in the same way as 50 Berkeley Square, you've got like the upstairs room that you're locked in, and it's just like full of dolls and creepy teddy bears, and it's just, I think if you look at it alongside The Woman in Black, the new one with Daniel Radcliffe, there's quite a lot of similarities in terms of set and the house and the way it's all executed. Woman
in Black is very good visually, but acting-wise and script-wise, it's let down on those fronts, I thought.
I thought it was all right. I mean, I've seen the play version so many times that I still think it was as good as what it could have been, I think. I don't think they could have, made it any better.
Well, Daniel Radcliffe was the reverse of Rosaline. Rosaline was a young kid, but you believed that she was older.
Yeah.
Whereas that Harry Potter boy, he wasn't convincing as a grown man with children. He was like a little kid. It's like saying having a baby having a child. To me, he's Harry Potter. He was too... His voice and the way he acts is still very childlike, I thought, in that film. So it's really hard for me to sort of believe that he was a grown man with a kid.
Yeah, definitely. He seemed a bit too amdram for like the context of the movie being maybe a bit more serious and a bit more ghostly. Because some of it I thought was genuinely quite unnerving towards the end of The Woman in Black. I thought it was well done. The kind of the way it conveyed all the atmosphere as well, the haunted house.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've both seen the sequel. I didn't really rate that.
I haven't, no.
No, I didn't see that.
It's I think Susan Hill distanced herself from it quite a lot, and it just feels a bit unfinished, and it seems more of a cash-in rather than an actual context that another sequel to it. So it's not very good. But it's the Gothic side of it I thought they conveyed very well. They got that from the play and the book. But I still think the 80s was the 80s or the early 90s version with Andy Nyman was like the best adaptation.
Yes. Yeah.
That's genuinely very terrifying at times.
Yeah, there's the stage. I mean, the stage version of it is probably the scariest, I think. It's always the bit where the woman is like hovering above the bed and he opens his eyes and she's like probably about a few inches from his face screaming. I think that'd scare the crap out of anybody. I think when you're lying in your bed at night and you're thinking of things like that, the worst thing you could possibly do would be to open your eyes and be literally a few inches away from something else looking at you.
Yeah.
I do that sometimes with my wife in bed. Once we've gone to bed, I'll turn the light off, but I'll keep my hand on the light switch, and then after about 5 minutes I'll turn the light back on, but I'll just be there like staring at her. But then I'll turn the light off. So I'll do it for like about 2 seconds and turn it off again. I get bored. I like to do things like that. So
excellent.
Yeah,
that's a good fact.
Ghost Stories the show when it was in the West End.
Yes. I did. Yeah,
I did too.
You both like it?
I did.
Great. Yeah, fantastic show. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
I was really, really impressed with that. I thought it conveyed a real sense of like someone telling you something quite unnerving from a personal point of view, but it's sort of being embellished as well. Some of that was really horrific, but brilliantly done.
Isn't it? Is it coming back into it? Is it coming back on soon, or is it being made into a film or something? I can't remember. I remember Andy saying something about it, but it was a while back.
Yeah. I spoke to him ages ago for the Spectral, and he said supposedly, I think it's Warp Films have got the license for it. So, I mean, that would be fantastic to see in the context of a movie. Could be, especially with Warp as well, who are quite mental. So that could be really good.
Is Warp Films anything to do with Warp, the record label?
I think so, as far as I know. That was the impression I got.
Yeah, because obviously they did, like Aphex Twin is on Warp, isn't he? And his videos are renowned for being particularly fucked up. Have you seen?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen the video of "Come to Daddy"?
That's what I was going to say. With those, they got it comes out of television. A bloke's face comes out of television. There's like these old grannies with
that's it.
Things.
Yeah, there's like these kids with all the same face. And
Chris Cunningham, isn't it?
The Chris Cunningham, that's it. Yeah, the guy who did the old PlayStation adverts with the girl who looks like an alien.
Yeah. I know. Apparently, the security guard left the set because he said it was so scary. As he was filming it, some massive guy was like, I really can't deal with this. Midgets running around with the face of Aphex Twin, screaming TVs, and he was like, no, I'm out of here. So they had to do a lot of it on quite a dodgy estate, I think, just without the security. Which
it looked like. It looked like a really dodgy part of London with the high rises and stuff. And but when that thing comes out of the TV, like when it stretches out, it's like an anorexic man, isn't it? With like a huge head that's screaming at her. And I think we need to put the video on the Facebook page for that, because
definitely,
I think in terms of horrific music videos, I think MTV, when the year it came out, said it was the most disturbing music video of all time. I think it's still high up there in that respect, because you watch it and you just think, what the hell is this, in a surreal kind of way.
Yeah. Well, let's hope Ghost Stories follows that fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I'd definitely go and see it again. I saw it just before Restart started doing it, so I really enjoyed it. It was a good night out. I remember, when you go and have your seats, they're playing spooky sounds, aren't they? They've got like wind and all that. And
That's right.
I had an American woman sat in front of me, and I was making like a rat sound, like going, like squeaking, and she kept like standing up and looking under a chair and everything. I was like, but it was only me playing tricks again. So, yeah. So yeah. Apparently, they talked about maybe taking it on a provincial tour, so maybe like going like to different theatres around the UK. Which, and if that is the case, that could be really good as well. Yeah, it'd be great.
They have to retain the same atmosphere though, because when you're in there, it's like an experience from start to finish. You know, when you went in there, the way it was done up and the way that people got in there when it started, and the whole thing, it was very. You didn't know what was going to happen.
No, yeah, it all added to the whole thing.
That was a great selling point, that everyone seemed to keep the secret of it, and the synopsis fairly quiet. So you went in there genuinely like a fairground ride, not really knowing what was coming up.
Yeah, there's not enough stuff like that nowadays. That
everything's too freely discussed on the internet, and the fact that the people kept that quiet is quite amazing in this day and age. That people are very keen to take pictures of everything, aren't they, and to tell everybody about everything these days on Facebook and whatnot. So for people to keep that quiet and to go there and still not know anything about it, it's quite a wonder in this day and age that it's managed to retain that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many trailers that just show the best parts of the films now that just make it totally redundant actually paying to go to a film. It's it's really disappointing. It's nice to have a bit of mystery and a bit of something unexpected when you go to a play or a film now.
100%. And I feel a lot of this comes from American TV. They have a documentary. They always say coming up, and they show you loads of the best bits that's going to come in the next section.
Yeah.
When you watch it, you've already seen the best bits of that documentary because they've shown you the clips. It's that kind of people can't wait to find out things before everybody else. I think it's this sort of this compulsion to be in the know. I think a lot of the time, and it's quite hard for people to keep a secret these days, particularly regarding things like even things like soap operas. The stories leak to the press, and it's all people know what's going to happen before it even happens. So there's very few surprises in life anymore. But Ghost Stories was genuinely a surprise because there's quite a few moments to make you jump in it, isn't there, and quite a few surprising twists and turns in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the climax was one of the scariest things I've probably ever seen in the theatre. It's genuinely really horrible, but brilliantly done. Really, really well done.
Yeah, it's superb.
Yes. So cool. Well, I think we kind of deviated off the track of Company of Wolves a bit there, but I think anyone who has listened to the last bit, obviously you've got a lot to be going on there. You can go and look up the Company of Wolves. You can even see the trailers and stuff on YouTube for it. But also Ghost Stories. You can also look that up and have a read about that. Two really iconic pieces of theatre and film, I think, that we recommend you go away and watch right now.
Yes, definitely. As Ghost Stories, you'll have to go to the theatre to see it, but it's worth the trip. Even if you're in America, get on a plane and go over and see it because it's fantastic.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on Company of Wolves, Freddie?
Yeah, well, another thing we missed out on, is the music. The music the music is fantastic. Soundtracks are very important. And I feel that it's up there one of my favourite soundtracks because it's very atmospheric music. If you're driving down country lanes in your car at night or around Burner Beaches where they filmed it and you've got that music playing on the stereo, it's incredibly atmospheric, even without the context of the film. But combined with the visuals, it just all adds up. It's all thought out. The visuals, the story, the casting, the music. It's just something that the details gone into each thing. There's been thoughts into every section of that film, but the music alone is fantastic, and if you like the film, the soundtrack is well worth getting hold of.
It is, yeah. I actually got a limited edition version of the of the Company of Wolves soundtrack. It's by a composer called George Fenton, and it had a little booklet inside, and it had all of his composer notes when he was actually writing the music for the film.
Oh, wow.
And the majority of it was written on for all you synthesizer geeks out there, it was all pretty much done on a Fairlight synthesizer. And quite often I think on the first dream sequence where the camera pans out of the window and you sort of see you're going over the forest and the sun setting, there's that it's a really iconic preset sound off the Fairlight synthesizer that they use on Ultravox Vienna, and it's that sound. I can't really emulate it very well with my yeah. If I can find a sound of it, I'll edit it into the show so you can hear it.
Or play a bit of Vienna, you know.
Yeah, it's like it's an odd sound. But a while back I bought a modern synthesizer, and I got a Fairlight, a software version of the Fairlight, and the first thing I went to do was find that preset, just to sit there going like that for literally hours on end. That's all I got it for, to do that.
Fairlight, it revolutionised the music. The whole sound of the 80s was dictated by the Fairlight, pretty much, wasn't it? Because you had Trevor Horn, with ABC and the Art of Noise and stuff like that. That was very much space rock. And of course, The Hounds of Love by Kate Bush. Yeah, it's quite heavy in the old Fairlight.
It is. Yeah. I mean, there are sections in the soundtrack where they use more traditional instruments, but it doesn't sound very synthesizer heavy though. It doesn't sound like a John Carpenter soundtrack, like to The Thing, which is all synthesizer. Even though it's synthesizer heavy, it still sounds like a traditional soundtrack. I mean, I would say it's probably one of my favourite soundtracks ever. I'll listen to it in the studio, at least sort of once every, I'd say 6 weeks or something. It's not I've got a lot of music. I don't listen to it every day, but it's definitely something I'd listen to, especially when autumn's coming and you're getting that kind of creepy feel. Yeah, because I feel that even though it's a lot of Fairlight on there, it doesn't date it, because I mean the Fairlight was cutting edge at the time, but it doesn't sound like an 80s soundtrack. It comes from any era. Like you look at Clockwork Orange, that was 70s, and the Moog was the actual cutting edge instrument at the time, so it does sound very 70s still, Clockwork Orange, even though it's a fantastic soundtrack. But I don't feel that Company Wolves is dated that much. Yeah,
definitely.
Sorry, Tom. What were you going to say?
I know with like similar movie I mentioned before, like Legends, where it was kind of like slightly fantastical, 80s based, and I know because they had Tangerine Dream did their really trippy, but they had I think it was they'd got someone else to do the soundtrack and they changed it at last minute. But that was the same thing where it was very. It didn't sound very 80s initially. It was quite sort of fantastical, just like minor uses of the synth. Along the same sort of lines. And when I saw Company of Wolves recently, it sort of reminds me very similarly of the same kind of soundtrack.
Because talking of Tangerine Dream, one of them died recently, Edgar Froese, who's one of the main people in Tangerine Dream. Yeah, and the weird thing about Edgar Froese is in the 70s, I remember there's an album that he brought out called Aqua. It's like a solo album. And what he did is the first revolutionary sound where he made this metal head. And it's supposed to be the sort of dimensions of a human head with ears on the side of it. And the ears were supposed to be based on a human ear. And what he did is he put some microphones inside this metal head and recorded the sounds of water running, like in streams and rivers and stuff like that. And then he put the music on top. So when you put headphones on, it's supposed to feel like you're submerged in water with this water trickling around your head. Wow. And there's a big fuss about this metal head. In all the music papers, NME at the time, adverts, and this metal head picture of it saying this is what he used to make this album. It'll blow your mind. And it's a very good album, yeah. Put headphones only album, definitely.
Oh, check it out. Sounds good.
He died recently. Rest in peace, Edgar. He's a great innovator.
The girl who, on the Back to Company Wolves as well, the girl who came out of the well at the end, the wolf girl, when she's telling the story to the wolf, that is, that's Danielle Dax.
Is it?
Yeah. Most listeners probably won't know who Danielle Dax is, but she was kind of a post-punk sort of. She wasn't goth and wasn't punk, but on the same lines as sort of you're on a Stevie Nicks, Kate Bush, Tori Amos type of thing. I suppose if you were to find a modern comparison to Danielle Dax, it'd probably be like Bat for Lashes.
Yeah, she was in a group called Lemon Kittens before, wasn't she? Before she went solo.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never known her as Danielle Dax, but
she was in a group. Yeah, I think they're called Lemon Kittens, and I remember seeing they used to have these late night concerts on like Channel 4. I think it was which had all the weird stuff, and had things like Zig Zig Sputnik on there and things like this. And they had this group called Lemon Kittens, and she was the singer before she went solo. And she did some very good music. Yeah.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to see a naked Danielle Dax climbing out of a well, that's one good reason to stay all the way to the very end of Company of Wolves. Although, you don't see anything. Although as a teenager, I did pause it quite a lot just to see if I could. She's I always thought she was quite a good looking kind of, I like sort of crazy looking women like that. Kate Bush and
Susan Boyle.
Susan Boyle, yeah.
She'd be a good werewolf in a film, wouldn't she?
Jesus.
Eyebrows join in the middle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No expenses on SFX. You don't need to pay any makeup expenses at all.
Yeah,
exactly. A low budget werewolf film with Susan Boyle in it. So if any film directors are listening, and you can get Subo, we can knock out my script.
It's like if Rabsy Nesbitt got scratched by a werewolf.
Yeah, it turns into Susan Boyle.
Yeah,
terrifying.
Poor woman. She's you shouldn't take the Mickey out of the afflicted.
Oh no, bless her.
Yeah.
She's done well.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, so that is A Company of Wolves, and that is our sort of slightly, off on a tangent kind of review of the film. If you've heard what you like, then obviously go and see if you can watch it. I don't think it's not streaming on anything like Netflix or video on demand or anything. I think it might be quite difficult to get hold of nowadays. It's just
you can get it on Blu-ray and DVD. I mean, when I first got on DVD, because my missus is her favourite film, and the DVD wasn't released in Britain at first, and I got it from somewhere like Denmark, and it had all this like foreign writing on the front of it, but the actual film was in English.
Yeah.
But it's been released since. You can get, if you go on Amazon now, you can get it on Blu-ray, and it's only about £6-7 last time I opened it.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, and it's quite a good transfer as well.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, Company of Wolves, £5.20 on Amazon Prime. So
there you go.
It's well worth. The Danish version's down there as well. It's called. That could be the Polish version actually. It looks. But there is that version on there as well. If you wanted to get something a little bit different, and the actual album's like £12.90 as well. So I definitely recommend getting that. Okay, welcome back to the Mystic Menagerie, and that's the end of another fun-packed show. So I'd like to thank our special guest today, Thom Burgess, for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much. It's been great to join you both, and I look forward to many more podcasts to come.
Yeah, no problem.
Excellent. And Thom, let's let people know where your website again, so people can get hold of Malevolents and the Spectral Times.
Yeah, sure. By all means, if people want to check out getting a copy of Malevolents, they can at www.malevolents.co.uk. And the Spectral Times, which it's free to sign up to, and it's literally just thespectraltimes.com. So we go out monthly, and if you want to subscribe, you can subscribe for free, and also buy print on demand.
Wonderful. We recommend both of them to our listeners. So they're both fantastic publications, worthy of your attention. So
yeah, there's so many. With Spectral Times, there's so much material in there for people who are, for any mystery entertainers who are developing routines and looking for really good ghost stories with first-hand accounts of hauntings. Then you can't get better information than you can in the Spectral Times, I would say.
It's the best, yeah. You can't beat it. It's packed. I know there's a lot in each issue as well. It's a packed read, so it's not something you'd read very skim over. It's a lot to get involved in there. So I think anybody could find something value in each issue.
Yeah. So that wraps up our show for today. So as we've said before at the beginning of the show, if you wanted to contribute and donate to the show and make sure that we keep going, then head over to Patreon and just sort of donate as much as you want, really. But those who donate to the Inner Sanctum level will get access to the extra 30 minutes of the show where Freddie and I will discuss the dark secrets of working in the dark arts.
Little girls, this seems to say, never stop upon your way. Never trust a stranger friend. No one knows how it will end. As you're pretty, so be wise. Wolves may lurk in every guise. Now, as then, 'tis simple truth. Sweetest tongue has sharpest tooth.